Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special Escape to Current Events Free Mountain edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Monster Party. Escaping the mountain. Woo.
Yes, scary,
Devil dogs,
futuristic,
bees,
and all around
Wonder Woman.
a very particular guest.
Oh my gosh! What a
guest,
day!
huh?
Yes, but speaking of guests, who are you, sir?
Thank you.
Oh,
I
me?
am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Strothe.
And I'm James Gonis.
Yes.
And for this episode, it's one of those episodes where our topic is our guest. We love
my
those kind
gosh.
of episodes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And man, did we score.
Oh, did we?
Oh my goodness. Our very special guest is someone we all grew up with, really.
Oh my gosh!
Mhm.
I felt he was a buddy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a friend. I could always rely on him when I walked into the theater or turned on the TV that I was going to get quality
Yes.
entertainment.
He was never mean or nasty like maybe other friends you might have known.
Well, in a
or-
couple, but it
Well-
wasn't his fault, let's just say.
No.
He is an extremely talented actor, director, producer, voice artist, and sound effects specialist who has appeared in such Monster Party favorites as Escape to Witch Mountain, Return from Witch Mountain, Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell. Yeah, you heard me.
Oh,
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. What?
classic.
And the short-lived but much-loved 70s sci-fi TV series, The Fantastic Journey.
Oh, God.
Oh,
just
please.
to name a few.
Yes. Oh, well, we're going to talk about much more. Please welcome Ike Eisenmann.
Ike Eisenmann, our guest and our topic today.
I wanted to applaud myself after that introduction. Thank
How do you like
guys so much
that,
for
right?
having me.
Oh,
Thanks
we
for
are
being
honored.
here. Yeah.
So
I'm
nice
happy
to
to be
have
here.
you.
You guys are a blast. You're a blast.
We're a good time. We're a party. We're a
Yeah.
monster party.
That's right.
Yeah,
And
but
before we get started about your career and about you, I just want to just set it out there that you are also a genre fan, are you not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Very much so. I particularly love science fiction. I always have, well before I had all the wonderful opportunities I had to be involved in it, professionally. But yeah, I love it. I really do.
So how great is that as a kid who likes this stuff, as you get older, you get to not only enjoy this stuff, but be in it,
Yeah,
to be
live
in
it.
that world.
It's beyond surreal because I had such big dreams about being involved in the industry, period. And, when you're a kid, we dream big about a lot of things, but,
Sure.
To dream about being in movies and TV shows and things like that, and then having that come true, it's overwhelming at first. And then to have the opportunities that then came up for me it's just beyond description. But I'll put this plug in right now. I have written a memoir about my career. So I did find
Nice.
a way to describe it in some way, shape, or form, but it's truly amazing. And one of the things I love the most about science fiction fantasies, especially Disney films, where all the special effects and the magical things that I saw happening up on screen that I ached to be a part of. So to get a chance to do those things then and be on come on, how many people get to walk onto the bridge of the Enterprise? Just
Right.
there's not that many. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this
So,
in greater detail. But the fact that you're not just anybody walking onto the Enterprise, you're part of the family, let's just say. But before we get to that, you started very early in the genre with your dad.
Yeah. How did you get into the whole thing?
Yeah, the kind of the abbreviated version of the story is my father had actually been an entertainer since he got out of high school in Texas, and he managed to get into live television and scored his own hosting job on a live children's show in Houston called the Cadet Dawn Show. And it was kind of space themed, and he had a puppet that he operated that was a little alien guy and had his own spaceship, and he had the spaceship set there and had guests on. I mean, he did 90 minutes of live television 6 days a week for 9 weeks. I mean, you talk about just incredible. And of course, I grew up watching my father on that box in the living room that we saw, all the other shows on every single day until I was 6 years old. And then when I was 2 years old, he had me on his show on my birthday. And I actually have a kind of an amazing video of that, which I've posted once on Facebook, but I am plan on including in some tweets in the future. But I remember, distinctly, because I have very vivid memories that go back even prior to to that age. And I remember walking, he carried me into the set, put me down, and kind of showed me everything that was going on. And I was instantly captivated. I just said, this is what it's about. It's like all the camera moving and the people doing the stuff that they did. And all of a sudden I understood even at that young age, what the other side of this whole thing was. And so what ended up happening is my father decided by the time I was 6 years old that he wanted to leave the show. He wanted to go out to Hollywood and try to seek his own, bigger fame and fortune there. So we just he uprooted our entire family, my younger brother, my mom, and we drove to Los Angeles, and he had an apartment he found for us. He immediately got an agent, started doing commercials and some musical theater and things like that. And then over the course of a couple of years, one of the things you kind of learn about the Hollywood, at least back in the 70s, this was very true in Hollywood, everyone was in the business in some way or another. They were either actors or producers or writers or directors or casting people or agents or managers or whatever. So we were surrounded by people in the business, and all their kids were in the business. They were doing commercials. So there was just sort of a little bit of a logical extension that it might be an idea for me to try. And I had harbored this deep desire to be a part of it, but I never said anything about it because I was a very shy child, very introverted, believe it or not.
Really?
Which is,
You?
Yeah, I still am, despite my ability to tell stories. But no, not necessarily. But really, as a child, I was very introverted. I was not the precocious kid that wanted to put on a show and have everybody watch him dance. That was not me at all. But I wanted to be a part of this thing. And so all of a sudden, one day, my dad says, "Hey, do you want to try doing commercials? We think you might be good at it." And I didn't know why. He thought I might be good at it. So I said, sure. Literally was introduced to his agent the following week. She signed me. Within 3 weeks, I booked my first commercial, and then it just started to snowball from there. And I was in the business for probably about 8 or 9 months before an audition came along that my agent knew about for Gunsmoke for a child my age. And she was primarily, the way the business works is, and it still does, it's like this to this day. You have an agent that represents you to do television commercials. You have a voiceover agent that represents you. Then you have a theatrical agent, it's called, who then will find you film and television guest appearance auditions or series or whatever that may be. And she was strictly a children's commercial agent, and she didn't do anything else. But she had heard about this role, ended up calling the casting person and saying, "I think you need to see this kid." And I went in and ended up booking it. And that then was the next step for me. And I have to say that I love doing commercials. I've loved working. Everything that I've done in the business, I have loved to death. And getting a chance to be on Gunsmoke, and doing scenes with Festus, for goodness sakes.
my gosh.
Wow. Yes. Do you think that the fact that you were not the kid who, wanted to put on a big show and was always performing for people all the time, do you think that was a thing that maybe helped you, even that like you came in there and you were a little more grounded and real?
Well, you've always been to me, like as a child actor, very, very natural.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
You really are. You really are. That's why I think people really take to you, like as fans and viewers, because you really are just like a very natural kid, really in those situations.
Well, no, thank you very much for that, because I think you're absolutely right, and I'm glad that that's how I come off. Because one of the things I somehow figured this out, because I didn't take acting classes, and I've talked to some of my other friends who are also successful child actors, whether or not they, took any classes or anything like that. And most of them said, no, they didn't. We all just kind of figured it out as we went along.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, I love movies and TV so much. And of course, I saw my father perform. And, my father was a bit of an overactor. I learned very quickly the difference between those personalities out there who were, it's bigger than life, and they were all over the place, and everything was like this.
Right.
And I saw other children who were like that, and there was a place for them. There were
Sure.
parts that were more appropriate for that type personality, but I wanted it to feel real. I just really, really did. Right. And somehow I figured that out as a child organically. And of course, working with wonderful directors and people that would give me, little guidance here and there, but that was it was natural. I did want it to be as natural as possible. I didn't want to seem like I was acting if I could avoid it. And it's even hard for me sometimes to watch my work, because I think that, oh gosh, I could have pulled back a little bit more here and made it a little bit
Don't
more
get me
realistic
started.
Or whatever. Yeah. But that's just what one does when they're, critical of when we're critical of ourselves. But I think the introversion did help, because I was very internal. I was very thoughtful. I spent a lot of time in my head, and you could see it on screen. I had directors actually compliment me for that, because one of the things that especially child actors don't understand is that when you're not talking, you have to be listening to the other actor. You're processing what they say, and your line is a response to what they just said.
Sure.
Or it's a fresh idea that you have, but it has to occur to you. And then it shows up on your face, and then all of a sudden you have a much more naturalistic performance. So I appreciate that, because that was very much what I tried to accomplish.
And by the way, for listeners who don't really know, Gunsmoke was a very popular TV show. It was so popular, it ran for 20 years, like from 1955 to 1975. So some of those kids out there listening go, Gunsmoke, what's that? Hey, trust me, for Ike to get on this was a big deal.
It was a big, So like after, being in Gunsmoke, did that kind of get the ball rolling as far as guest appearances in other shows? Because looking at your early career, all the big high-profile hit shows that were on at the time, you had guest stints in. Like MANNIX, Kung Fu, Emergency, Policewoman, and then into the 80s, Chips, 8 is Enough, Wonder Woman, T.J. Hooker. Because I would think that even back then, there's only like a finite number of sellable kid actors, to do these shows, right? But it seemed like you were pretty prolific, and you kept it. You were going pretty good there, and especially in through the 70s into the 80s.
Yeah, you nailed it, because Moosey and I were talking about the same thing. I'm referencing now a child actor, a friend of mine that I literally grew up with in the business, Moosey Dreyer, who worked he worked more than I did, but didn't quite have this, like a couple of the signature parts and projects that really keep him in people's vision today. Right. But he was one of the actors I saw at every audition. There was Robbie Rist. There were a few others. Very, like a handful is no kidding, maybe 6.
Yeah.
And then there were the kids who kind of fell outside that circle, and yet still got parts, because we got saturated. There'd be an oversaturation of one child playing all these guest starring parts on different shows.
Right.
And there really was a bit of a conscious, casting on casting directors' parts to make sure that you didn't have the same child. Actually, and this is not necessarily true, because I did 2 more Gunsmokes after that first one. They asked me back, but they tried not to, rotate around, sort of like the same week, the same kids on the same show. I didn't even know if necessarily that's the case, but it seemed that way to me.
Yeah.
But once I did that Gunsmoke, then I had film on me, which is we do it in air quotes, because actually you could, I didn't secure this at the time, but many actors, in order to build a reel so that you could show, producers and directors what you could do, you got 16 millimeter film copies that you had to pay for in the studios. And they would give you a clip of a scene. They were very generous about making it available to you, but it was a massive process until videotape came out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So then I had film on myself, and that happened. Talk about pop culture reference, when Betamax finally came into being,
right?
And we bought one of those machines immediately so that then we could record, what my father was doing, what I was doing. Then you have these tapes and we'd have them edited. So then you could send these things around. But yeah, once I hit that Gunsmoke and then Emergency happened and then MANNIX happened and Kung Fu, and it kind of rolled big time after that. But and not to get ahead of you guys, but when that started to happen for me, I started to realize that, you know what? Disney's a studio. There's CBS Studios and there's 20th Century Fox and MGM and Warner Brothers that I was going to, but I had yet to go audition for Disney yet. And I just started to go crazy because I wanted to be in something Disney so bad.
Really?
I had dreams about it. I mean, dreams at night, where I would dream about being in a Disney in a Disney project.
Wow.
And that's all I could think about. So when I finally got my first audition there, which was very shortly into my now booking these guest spots, I was beyond excited and freaked out. And I said, I'm going to be in a Disney movie. I'm going to be in a Disney movie. And I was so excited. And I auditioned for Virginia Higgins was her name. She was the head of children's casting at the Walt Disney Studios. They had two different departments, the adult department and the children's department, which was also a very unique kind of bit of Hollywood trivia. Disney was the only studio that had it set up that way. She specialized in kids.
Okay.
That was it. That was all she did. And she was an amazing lady. I loved her to death. She was always incredibly kind to me, but I had that audition and left and never heard from her again. I didn't get a call back. I didn't get the part. And I thought, oh my God, this is awful. This is awful. And so then she kept calling me back and calling me back and calling me back. And literally it was 11. I had 11 auditions at the studio, and I had kept track of this in my head. It's like one of those seminal things where, I just said, man, this is my 11th audition. And I just don't think I'm ever going to get anything. I just can't believe it. But that 11th audition turned out to be Escape to Witch Mountain. So that ended up working out. So I was happy about that.
That's amazing.
to have that be the one where you hit, and it's a classic.
It is. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I remember going to the theater to see that film.
Me too.
I mean,
oh my God, that's fantastic.
And I swear to God, when I saw you, the first thing is, I wanted to be Kim Richards' boyfriend.
Well,
and then I wanted you to be, I wanted you to be my buddy. I had older brothers that would beat me up. It's like, oh, this guy Tony's really nice. I want to hang out with him. And he could use his mind power. Maybe he came over and he could stick things in my brother's face or something. That was my thought. Oh man, I was such a huge fan.
It's true.
Wow, I love the fact that Larry would use you for evil.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right, Matt. I never thought of it that way.
No, you don't want to know.
He's got the power. He's got the power. It would be foolish for me not to say, "Hey, come on, Tony. What do you say? Start
small."
But let's talk about Escape to Witch Mountain, please.
It was again. All these stages in my career were overwhelming to me, because all of a sudden here my Disney dream has come true, and it's come true in the form of a starring role in an amazing story. And I remember, sitting down and reading the script, so excited, not really knowing what it was about. Because see, that was another funny thing about Disney, is they never told you exactly what you were auditioning for. They just brought you and they gave you some copies.
Oh, really?
I didn't even know I was reading. I didn't even know I was reading for a movie. I was just one more audition at Disney. And so when I read the script and I kept going through page after page, and it was Tony and Tia, Tony and Tia, Tony and Tia. Oh my God. And all of these amazing special effects that were, of course, described in the script. And I thought, oh man, I mean, this is beyond the dream come true. I'm going to get to do every magical thing I'm sorry. I when I hit this point, I get emotional every single time. That's how much it means to me.
Wow.
I was beyond, it was just like, it was like this, I can't believe this is actually happening to me.
Yeah.
And then I had to move past that state of amazement and go to work, and basically get in there and do my job, which I was thrilled to do. Absolutely thrilled to do.
And this is 1975. And I think the thing that makes that movie really stand out still to this day, because you had like the Dexter Riley films, and Disney had established this little niche of like these kind of fun live action films. But to me, Escape from Witch Mountain was more sophisticated than most live action fare from Disney at the time. Yes, it was still kind of aimed for kids or maybe like young adults, but there was this unfolding mystery. It was just unusual, I think, for Disney at the time. It was a little scary. It was a bit of an action suspense kind of film, but still with that Disney vibe to it. So I think it really stood out, and the high caliber of actors.
Oh my!
Like, I mean, even from your television work and into this though, but like working with people like Eddie Albert, Ray Milland, Donald Pleasance, like, what was it? I mean, even at that young age, did you have kind of a sense like, oh, these are big stars around,
heavy hitters
working with? Yeah.
No, I knew who they were because I was a fairly voracious consumer of old movies.
Nice.
Because like I said, I wasn't a social kid. I wasn't, I did play some Little League, but I wasn't out playing with my friends. I was watching television. I mean, this is what I liked to do, and reading books. I was one of those kids even going, way back then. So, seeing Ray Milland and, on, the weekend movies, because in the old days of television, which all of us probably remember, you had 3 channels, and then you had the UHF channels, and for content, because they couldn't produce their own content, they would play old movies, and the Little Rascals and the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers and all of this incredible stuff that I just found absolutely amazing. And so I would watch all of it. And I knew Donald Pleasance from many of his movies, especially The Great Escape. That was the one that I knew the most from. And so I was always aware of these people. And the thing that fascinated me was just learning about what type of people they were versus the kind of characters they play. Because Donald Pleasance was absolutely as quirky and eccentric and adorable as he is in all of his movies. Not as creepy and weird as he can play. He had that uncanny ability to turn that little quirk, the quirks that he has, into something really malevolent, that can make you terribly uncomfortable. But he was absolutely a doll. And Ray Milland, I felt like I've worked with 2 movie stars in my career, and we can debate that, but I'll define that. Stars who they are just so massive in the force of their charisma that they are just simply that. They're movie stars walking in the door. Ray Milland was one, Betty Davis was another. And everyone else was, of course, they were movie stars. I'm not taking that away from them, but they were more like powerful personalities that performed and were famous for it and worked a lot. But I felt like Ray Milland, he just had that. I mean, he smoked, he just had this austere air about him that you got from his films. And he was definitely an old time Hollywood movie star. That's what he was. And I found that really compelling. And everyone was just amazing to work with.
Another thing, apart from it being serious, another thing that stood out to me at the time, I think we were all around 10 years old when this movie came out, was that we were all very much aware of ESP and paranormal ability at the time.
UFOs,
but this was the first time it was actually kids who had the abilities. And that made it like, oh, I've got to see this.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, that's why I ate it up. And I was a big fan of Village of the Damned, which I kind of consider original kids with, psychic ability. Because that's, to me, one of the most terrifying films ever made. And I loved that movie. So I felt like we were playing kind of a version of that. Because, yes, you're absolutely right, that it was kids was very interesting. And, of course, this is all looking back. At the time, I wasn't aware of like the history of necessarily that, or Kim in My Place in that kind of concept. But I did find it interesting, even looking back. We were these 2 kids with amazing psychic telekinetic abilities that were being chased by humans that want to use us for their nefarious purposes. And we're constantly having to defend ourselves. And one of the most interesting things, I think, in the movie is when Ray Milland and Donald Pleasance are about to catch us one more time. And Tia ends up using their own handgun against them.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, right.
It's like, and I've watched as many times as I've watched the movie. All of a sudden, once I'm sitting looking at it on my computer as I was writing, and I said, that's a 38 special. We're aiming that gun at grown-ups. Right now.
You got to do what you got to do.
It was an interesting thought. But yeah, the darkness of it I found fascinating. John Huff, who was a new director for Disney, was brought in because he had that whole fascinating way he liked to shoot his films. And I think he's the one who's personally responsible. Yes, the content and the story is what it is. But if he hadn't been there to kind of guide it in that more, I didn't know how to describe it, but that more serious manner.
People need to realize before listeners go, Escape to Witch Mountain, it's that kid's film. Understand this director had done Twins of Evil, The Legend of Hell House.
Yeah, he had his horror suspense chops. Yeah.
So it's like, if you think about it, Disney, from a producing point of view, they're thinking, it's a serious film, serious topic. They get this director that's kind of known for doing horror stuff. And so I'm telling listeners, if you haven't seen this film, there's something very sinister and also magical about this film that if you haven't seen it, I would say check it out. I'm talking about the classic from '75 with Ike in it. So,
and there's also something very touching about their relationship with Eddie Albert, who helps them because he's a widower, a childless widower, and he's reluctant at first, and then he ends up sort of bonding with them and helping them a great deal, and that's to me sort of the center of the whole picture too.
And what's interesting is that apparently that was different from the novel that this story came from, where he's actually Father O'Day in the novel. He's a priest.
Yeah. The novel is much darker than the film. I have read it a few times over the course of my life because I read it when I got the part, and I didn't connect with it. I mean, I was 11 years old when I did the film. I read it because I wanted to understand where it came from. I just wanted to be as involved in all of this as I possibly could. And I didn't quite, I saw what they were trying to make out of the book, but the book is very different in many ways. It's a lot darker and stranger. The children are older, they're teenagers. And so it has a very different feel to it. And I thought what was genius about Disney's version, which Disney does anyway, Disney has a genius for being able to adapt stories in a way that clearly turns them into classics. But the relationship with Eddie Albert and his character, he's got the biggest arc. We learn about ourselves, but we're pretty much who we are throughout the whole film. But Jason O'Day starts out this curmudgeon that hates kids and doesn't want anything to do with us, and ends up falling in love with us and wanting to, kind of pining for the opportunity to be our caretaker. But then we find out where we belong, and he, of course, lets us go. I think it's a really touching character, and he played it so well. He was fascinating because he was very much a method actor, and he wouldn't even talk to Kim and I the first few days we worked together because he wanted to maintain that crotchety kind of angry persona, and in terms of our relationship with him. So we didn't really have any conversations with him until quite literally his character started to warm up, and then he started warming up to us. And I thought, this is interesting. I've heard of this, but I've never really worked with anyone at that point who was that, who's that immersed in kind of method maintaining his character from a method standpoint, all day long. But he was absolutely became, I got quite close to him towards the end of the film and had lunches with him and, talked about a lot of things because he was a huge environmentalist. Oh, wow. I think this might be a myth, but I believe Earth Day was chosen, that date was chosen because it's Eddie Albert's birthday, because he was so involved in the ecology movement is what it was called in the 70s. Right. Now it's many other things, but it was a very big deal in the 70s to be an activist in that arena. And he was very outspoken and fascinating, just a fascinating man.
So Green Acres was literally green.
That's what. See that? See,
that's right.
There you go.
But Eddie Albert, talk about an actor with so much range where, you can get a performance like he did in Green Acres, light comedy, and then go to something like Attack. And it's just
war film,
just a fascinating actor.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. And to bridge the world of television comedy and films was a very rare thing for actors in the 60s and 70s. You were either a television actor or you were a movie actor. Right. And it was, there's a stigma about that, where you usually stayed in one lane, and he managed to cross over in many different worlds. Yeah, so I found him fascinating.
But look, we've talked about some of these actors, though. But I'd really want to get to the beautiful blonde elephant in the room, which is Kim Richards. I mean,
I don't think you would like that description.
I don't mean it like that. I don't mean it like that. But it's like, come on, Ike. She's your co-star.
This is the first time you guys worked together, right?
Did you guys hit it off?
Yes.
What was it like working with her? I mean,
we had. I have to admit, we had a very strange relationship. She was the seasoned professional in my eye, because I knew her from Nanny and the Professor and her work in commercials and other TV shows. So I knew who she was. I was kind of, even though I had done my share of parts, I was kind of more brand new, and she'd been around for a really, really long time. And we worked perfectly together. Our chemistry together when we were on the set and doing our scenes together was never in question. We stepped right into it from day one, from the first day we started working. But when we were off camera, we were in school doing schoolwork. Because that's how the day goes when you're a child actor. You have two massive responsibilities, which is why it can be very exhausting. And one of the things that the state of California, other states have this, I know, but the state of California had established, labor laws regarding minors, children, to keep them from being exploited and overworked, because we all know the sad stories about the Mickey Rooneys and all of the past. But they instated actually it's a 9-hour work day for children. That's as long as you could keep them on the set. You had an hour for lunch, and 3 hours had to be spent in school every day. So essentially that gets pared down to 4 or 5 hours in front of the camera, and that's all the production has available to it. So for Kim and I, we were either working or boom, right in school, and having to spend and bouncing back and forth. So we had no real downtime. And we had that concentrated time, and I liked taking breaks and kind of doing my own thing, and she liked doing her own thing. So we got along fine. It wasn't that we didn't get along. Sure. It's just that it wasn't the, hey, us ribbing off to the side and,
smoking your cigarettes at the craft service table, hey.
No.
Chocolate cigarettes. Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Drinking coffee, though. We drank coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the funny thing. It's like, even with Disney, every film has got a bunch of kids in it, but there was never like soda on the set. It was iced lemonade, which I could only drink so much of, iced tea, water, and coffee. So I learned to drink coffee really young with a lot of cream and sugar in it, and that was my go-to. So there you go.
Wow. That'll help you during a 9-hour workday.
Yeah, well, that helped enhance the telekinetic powers, probably.
And then, so we go to the sequel, which again, it's John Huff. That is how you pronounce his name?
Yes, Huff. It's Huff. Exactly.
And the first one was a huge hit, though.
Huge hit.
I mean, this one it was a big breakout.
It did really well.
I think I saw it 3 times. Mom, can we see Escape from Witchbound again?
Me too. Yeah. No, I love it.
They literally
That's
dropped
awesome.
us off at the theater, and I saw it as a double feature with something else too. So yeah, I mean, I thought I knew all the lines, and I played a little harmonica,
And what's interesting about the sequel is just how much darker it is in a lot of ways. And then the action, it's almost like the 7-Ups of the Witch Mountain movies. There's all these car crashes, and I mean, it's got a lot going on.
And
I completely. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I
was going to say, and your cast members too. So
I mean, really,
Christopher Lee.
I mean,
Teddy Davis.
who is more lucky than I to spend all day long and most of the film with Betty Davis, Anthony James, and Christopher Lee, around.
Really?
It was just, it was
Anthony
just,
James,
it was just
my
amazing.
God.
Yeah.
Great character
No, and
actor. I love him.
Oh, absolutely. I did know who he was, as well. So I found Return from Witch Mountain to be a little bit, even though it's darker in many senses, but I found it to be a more typical Disney movie than Escape to Witch Mountain was, because there was a lot more hijinks in it. There were more kids. Obviously, you had the Earthquake gang that Kim spent time with, and they're all it was more of what you kind of saw in other Disney films in terms of the lighter comedic stuff.
Right.
But it still had that dark stuff. I mean, my gosh, pitting Tony against Tia and trying to force me to kill my sister was just God, it was terrible.
Christopher Lee telling you, crush her, kill her. I mean, I'm like,
and I've never seen a more realistic portrayal of the LA gang problem than in that movie.
The most romantic, positive depiction of LA gangs ever.
I can only imagine what would happen to the Earthquake gang today.
They won't be around too long, I don't think. But also, the movie stands out too because it's such a good action film. You have a great music score by Lalo Schifrin, which really adds to it. And also, it kind of becomes the China syndrome after a while, which is kind of scary too, with the whole, I mean, but it really is really enjoyable.
So, Ike, what was it like working with Betty Davis?
As I mentioned before, I felt like I've only worked with two real major movie stars, despite the star status of everyone else I've worked with. And Betty Davis was the second one. Ray Milland was one, just because of his incredible stature in the industry. Also, his incredible stature. He was a huge, tall man, just like Christopher Lee is an incredibly tall man.
Right.
But Betty Davis was the one actor that I was the most nervous and intimidated at the thought of working with them, because when Hollywood found out that Betty Davis was going to be in a Disney movie, it turned out to be a really big deal. I mean, the trades talked about it. Everyone talked about it, because she just didn't do these kinds of things, and people couldn't understand why. And I don't know when it surfaced exactly, because it could have been after she did the film when she actually revealed why she wanted to do a Disney film, but it was primarily so that her grandchildren could have something that they could watch that she was in, because they had never seen any of her movies, because they wouldn't get her movies.
Well, they're more adult,
and what I think is really funny is she ended up doing Watcher in the Woods as well. So she did at least two Disney films. But when people I knew that I was going to be working with her on the sequel, they started terrorizing me with stories about Betty Davis, that she's like, okay, well, how demanding she is. And she's like, I've heard she's really hard to work with. And I hope you're going to be able to handle it, because, she can be a real diva. And it was coming out from so many different places that I really was nervous. And so the first day on the set with her was just like the tension. You could have cut it with a knife. I mean, the crew was, like nervous that she was going to be there. And then I was nervous she was going to be there. And I didn't quite know what to expect until she showed up. And we did. It was just, my God, there was barely even a hint of all this craziness that I had heard about. She was a very generous, professional person with me. And when I was introduced to her, I said, "It's such an honor to meet you, Ms. Davis." And she says, no, it's Betty, because we're going to be working together too closely for too long on this, and I can't be Ms. Davis. I want to have fun. And so she just completely disarmed me, and I instantly relaxed with her, and immediately found out that she has an incredible sense of humor. I mean, she's just really funny, very dry, very smart. But at the same time, yes, she is a demanding performer, because she is a movie star. I mean, for goodness great, she's one of the biggest movie stars of all time,
absolutely,
especially at that time. And I like to say that she's the movie star that other stars aspire to be like.
Yeah.
Major stars do. So anyway, she was demanding. She expected things. She expected to be taken care of because that was appropriate in my mind. I mean, I didn't think she was ever unreasonable about anything, but she also knew the impact she had on people and how nervous they were and how awkward they were oftentimes dealing with her. And so she would sometimes just make little demands for no good reason just to watch people jump.
Larry, sound familiar?
Yeah, well, maybe.
Which I thought I was absolutely hilarious. And this was a few weeks into the shoot that she got comfortable enough with me to nudge me and say, okay, you want to know what it's like to be a movie star? This is how, I'm going to show you. And so she snaps her fingers and she says, water, I'm thirsty. I need water. And all of a sudden, all these people turn with panicked look on their faces. They run around. They're looking for glass. They're trying to fill anything that they can with some cold water and get it to her. And then someone finally makes it. It's like you have all these people and then somebody finally makes it. And the cups put it in front of her and she takes it and she took one sip, handed it back to him and said, "Thank you very much." And he walked away in complete shock. And then she turned to me and she said, "That, young man, is how it's done." I just thought, holy cow. I said, I knew in that moment that there was no way, no matter how big a star I might become, I could never do something like that.
I was going to say that. Did you start to go, let me try that?
No.
Water.
Yeah. Whenever I try that, I get the seltzer water.
There you go. And, rightly so, because you'll get cut down to size pretty quickly, by people in this business. But that's how she was, and she knew who she was. She knew what she could get away with. She knew what she wanted and needed, and I found it utterly reasonable. There was, it really was. She just liked to have fun and tease people a bit about it. So, but everyone throughout the entire shoot, so many people were nervous about working with her, being overly gracious and overly, trying to do too many things. And she didn't discourage it. She didn't discourage it. She didn't spend time on the set. She was there to work when they actually had her stunt double play, always dressed in her same clothes, would stand in for her also, stand in for rehearsals also a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
Simply because Betty says, I'll be there when I need to work. We do a couple run throughs. She knew her lines. I mean, she was a consummate professional. And that was the thing that blew me away. And the thing that was always consistent for me with all the movie stars or, the stars I worked with, no one was there to screw around. Everyone was serious about their work. They were prepared. And, so they were just extremely professional, as was I. And I liked that. And they respected me as a result. And so I was, good grief. I mean, between, and she and Christopher Lee would just sit and they would tell these, and I swear, I wish I had written some of these stories down, just the things they would talk about and, working with so-and-so or some funny thing that happened on a film. And I just thought, this is precious. This is a precious experience.
Yeah, I always heard that, from various people that Christopher Lee was a little standoffish at times. He could be a little cold to people, but how was he to you in that film?
He was absolutely gracious with me. I mean, it's always an interesting thing because there are the stars that will be, more socially inclined, a little bit more engaging in terms of, interacting with you. Roddy McDowell was one. He was absolutely my favorite person I've ever worked with. And that will be the case for the rest of my life. And he and I remained friends actually after working together on Fantastic Journey. So we would sit and we'd talk about our weekend on Monday morning and, and things like that. So, but it wasn't that way with Betty Davis and Christopher Lee. They were there doing their job. They didn't really hobnob in that sense. So, and it wasn't like he just ignored me or was cold to me. Not at all. We worked really well together,
That's cool.
But yeah, it just didn't roll over into anything a little bit more warm and fuzzy and personal. And that's about, as far as it went with him.
So you never brought him like little vampire teeth. Go, hey, Chris, put these in. Come on, oh, come on, Matt. Come on.
No.
You wouldn't have done that?
No, I wouldn't. No. I'll save that after like 25 years of friendship. Maybe I'll pull out the plastic teeth.
All right.
I gotta say, Ike, that it is so cool hearing you talk about this as someone who, as a young actor, you had this awareness. You didn't take any of it for granted. You were soaking it all up and appreciating it for what it was. That's wonderful.
Oh, I knew what I was going through at the time was valuable and special. I mean, I knew it. I was always aware of that, and I appreciate your comment, because it's just amazing to be able to sit back and say, no, I didn't just get to meet these people. I didn't just get to have lunch with them. I worked with them, for weeks at a time, and we were all doing the same thing together. And, they quickly become, they're still stars in your eyes, but the comfort zone is right there.
Right.
There's no wall up about it. And I think that was the thing that was so wonderful. I've worked with some persnickety people. I won't tell those stories today, but that's that does happen.
We'll say that for our persnickety show.
Exactly. Not everybody's necessarily happy about some aspects of their career that made them famous, which really blows me away. But there's that element. But
by the time Return to Witch Mountain was done, which also was pretty successful, those two films, you were kind of like a Disney kid now. I'm just curious how, the Disney studios of the 70s was certainly very different from the Disney studios of today. And was there like did they treat you well? Like, was it a kind of real family feeling of camaraderie working under them? Like, I'm curious what it was like being kind of like a star at that time. Associated with
that's
Disney.
Exactly what it was like. Disney was a family. It was a family environment. It was the best studio to work for. And anyone who talks about Disney from that era will tell you exactly the same thing. I was extremely fortunate to have been offered a 3-year contract at the studio early on, working on Escaped Witch Mountain. I guess they saw the dailies. They thought I was a valuable enough performer that they wanted to, put me under contract. And that was kind of the end of that era. It wasn't happening a whole lot anymore. Yeah. And that was the other, just icing on the cake for me, because my 3-year contract involved 6 projects. So I knew I was going to do potentially up to I think 7 other projects outside of Witch Mountain.
Wow.
It flew a year for 3 years. And I thought, this is just the best thing in the world. Because for me, as a child actor, the only thing that was exhausting, I loved to work. You could work me all day, every day. And I was thrilled about it. But when I was done with a job and I had to go audition every day after school, it started to just get really, really exhausting, because it's an everyday occurrence. Between commercials and TV and movies, you go to school all day, and then you get in the car and you do your homework on the seat while you're driving from one place to another around Los Angeles. And it's just, by 6 o'clock at night, I was dead. So the idea that I would be able to work for Disney, they would offer me parts, and I didn't have to audition for them anymore. It was beyond thrilling. So that being said, I did end up working they only didn't exercise my option for one summer. And the funny thing is, I did Witch Mountain in 74, because it's released in 75. And that's the other thing that even as I was writing my memoir, I had to go do an archaeological dig through my own life to try to remember when I actually worked on these films. And I shot Witch Mountain. It was April through May of 1974, and then wasn't released until March 75. And so before Witch Mountain was released, I did my first Wonderful World of Disney project called The Sky's the Limit, which was on the air, but actually before Witch Mountain came out. Wow. And then the next summer, I did 2 more television Wonderful World of Disney projects, then Return from Witch Mountain, and then I did 1 more after that. So I literally spent my summers on the Disney lot. It's basically what it was for 3 years. And they always, the same people worked in the studio. They had, of course, more than enough people to shoot several films at a time or projects at a time, but I kept seeing the same guys. I'd work with the same people. You work at the lot, you go to the commissary, hey, Ike, hey, Frank, this is how it was.
Wow.
And it was a magical place. I mean, it was a magical place. You've got the animation building there, the theater, you've got the prop department, you've got the set building place, you got the three main stages right there. And it is it's a small lot. That's the thing that's amazing about it. You've got like 20th Century Fox, which is massive.
Right.
It was just massive at the time. And Disney, which was really kind of small. But, the archives were there. And I just got to wander the lot, the back lot. I'd go, on my lunch breaks, I'd go wander around to, just soak it in, because that's how much I loved it. It was that special to me. And they treated me incredibly well. They really did.
But did you get to meet Roy Disney, though? Roy?
No, I did not meet Roy. I didn't even meet Ron Miller, who was really responsible for Witch Mountain and a lot of titles that came out back then. And that Witch Mountain was kind of one of his babies. I think he'd read the book, or someone in his family had read the book and thought it would make a good movie, and he championed it and got it going. And he even, it was his idea to hire John Huff and have it be a different kind of Disney film. Because I think, Disney's gone through its various transformations, and that was a rough period of time for the studio.
Yes.
I mean, we were a very low budget film, and it was a pretty good success at the box office, and built a huge following afterwards, and sort of that opened up the opportunity for them to do other types of movies than Herbie the Love Bug and the Computer War tennis shoes. So
could you, when you were under contract, were there any projects that you resisted, or could you ever even say no to anything? You probably didn't want to.
No, I didn't want to, because Disney didn't do anything that would warrant that kind of scrutiny, unless you were a major star and perhaps didn't want to do another Disney film. But no, I was thrilled. I wouldn't have turned anything down. I was disappointed that I didn't get picked up for one more project, but they just didn't have anything for me.
Yeah.
And so that was just beyond, it was, I keep overusing the words, but it was just beyond extraordinary. And the nice thing about working during the summer is you don't have to go to school. School is out for 3 months. So I didn't have to have school on the set. So I got an extra 3 hours in front of the camera that I was allowed to work. And I just, I loved it. I loved it. It was just awesome.
It's funny. When you mentioned earlier, the great thing about being signed was you didn't have to keep going to the auditions. And people need to understand that when you are a kid actor, I mean, the amount of time that you can be a kid actor is only so long, because, people grow up. And so that's why it's important that they try to get you to audition here. You got to audition, because they want you as a kid and before you start to change, before you're, before you grow up, essentially.
Very much so. And because we were a small community back then, and there were a lot of projects, for children, especially commercials. And I just loved to work. So I was willing to go. I call it it became a grind for me, but I said the grind was worth it, because I booked frequently enough that I got to work often enough to satisfy my obsession and my compulsion to work. So that was a good thing.
We were talking about some of the actors. You mentioned working with Roddy McDowall, which is the next thing, the fantastic journey from 1977. Which
is like, you were doing that kind of between the Witch Mountain films in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Very good observation. I got that, which I was tremendously excited about, because it was a pilot for a science fiction series, for goodness sakes. I love the Bermuda Triangle. I used to watch all the documentaries. I read as many books as I could about UFOs. I was as obsessed with that stuff as everyone else was at that time. So the idea for the show, I love the idea for the show, and it was an exciting pilot, and then we got picked up. So then I was like, oh my God, I've got a series. I'm going to do a series. I don't have to audition for the next 3 months.
Right. Yeah.
And then finding out it was a problematic show not problematic. The show had a lot of problems from day one. The pilot was interesting and very different. And anyone who's watched the series or knows anything about it, it's a group of us go on a scientific
excursion.
Ship, sailboat excursion. Yes, a 3-hour tour to do some kind of experiments on the ocean, and we get caught up in this weird squall, and we end up in the Bermuda Triangle. We're lost at sea. We end up on an island because the original title of the show was The Incredible Island. That's where it started.
Okay.
And so that's why the first episode is very fragmented and strange.
Yeah.
Because the concept was that this island is divided up into all these different time zones. Now, that concept didn't change, but what changed was we were no longer going into the past like we did on the pilot. The network just decided they wanted a more science fiction-y kind of show. So it was all going to be, other worlds and in the future and anything that supports science fiction, even though the idea of going into the past does support the science fiction concept. It didn't, the imagery didn't, so, so they ended up wiping out most of the cast.
Yeah, it was strange.
Myself,
very interesting.
Franklin.
It was like a plot point in the middle of the movie. It's like you get like a letter from your parents. Oh, we just left. See you later.
I'm not.
It was really weird.
I am not crazy
Completely
about
bizarre.
Your parents in that show.
Yeah,
I have to say something to pat myself on the back. That was the hardest scene I ever had to do in my entire career, because I remember reading these words. Everyone said this doesn't make any sense, but we've got to find a way to make it work. And that rested on my shoulders. I had to sit there and go, how am I going to make sense of this as a child?
Yeah,
that has my parent decide they're going to go on and then come back and get me later, or I'm going to go meet up with them, in the next place we go. It was incredibly bizarre, but somehow they made it work well enough to do this transition into the science fiction area, and then that, all that was left of the cast was Carl Franklin and I. And
because Rory McDowell was not in the pilot yet.
He didn't come on until the third episode. And then we actually had another character that came in on the third episode, Katie Saylor. Right. And that was it. So only Carl Franklin and I were the original remaining cast members. And I was grateful,
really.
I loved it.
Anything can happen in the Bermuda Triangle. So let's casks and change, and
I loved it. So, I made that the tuning fork that Varian had. I made one as a kid, and would run around with my tuning fork trying to get things to happen. But then also, I have to say, the way this series progressed, considering what your parents did to you, it was just bye. Hey, we got our chance. Good luck. You were better off. You were better off where you were.
Right. But that show also, it was like a quintessential 70s sci-fi show. And like you said, Bermuda Triangle, UFOs, time travel, Atlantis. You had pulsating brains in like jars, and the Bonaventure Hotel, which is used in so many shows. It also reminded me a little bit of Land of the Lost. The same kind of idea. They're stuck in an island, and like different people coming from different time zones.
Oh yeah, it is the same concept basically. I mean, you're absolutely right. But what I got excited about, and of course it'll segue into the other major thing you guys will probably want to talk about, is we got a bunch of people from the original Star Trek series working on
DC Fontana.
Right. She was the one who guided. She was our story editor, as well as she wrote a number of the, I think at least one, if not two of the scripts episodes. But she was the one that kind of helped them figure out how to transition into the, from the pilot into the Atlantis thing and all of that stuff. So, and we even had crew members. I mean, our cinematographer was worked on the original series. The prop guy did. So, I mean, I don't know how many props he made for the original series, but he made that tuning fork.
Nice. Yeah.
Where is it now?
There it is. Yeah.
When I was reading about the show, and I think it said that it was on in a time slot that was very difficult. I think it was up against like Welcome Back, Kotter and the Waltons, like which so was that did that have to do with like the early
that's what I meant. The show had a lot of problems. It came on, the ratings were actually quite good. We were excited. Then the second part aired the next week, picked up a few more points, and then we got preempted our third week. I think there was a major sporting event that happened. So that meant it was going to push our third episode down another 2 weeks. And then it didn't do as well because and first of all, it was a mid-season replacement at the same time. So it didn't get the whole big promotional push that a new series would get. It came in, and I don't have no idea what show we replaced for NBC, but so then we lost a little traction. Then we were preempted the week after that. So the fourth episode didn't air for another 2 weeks, and the ratings weren't doing so well. So they switched us to another night. And then we bounced around from like 2 or 3 other airing night. And so the audience could never figure out when we were on. And by the time we shot the 10th episode, they canceled the show. We didn't even shoot the last 2 that we were scheduled to shoot. So it was really a bummer.
Everyone.
Everyone. And the timing of it, I think the timing of it was just a little off because this is right as Star Wars came out, probably just as your last couple episodes were airing. So like the big space, renaissance and TV and movies like hadn't really happened yet. So I think even Logan's Run, this TV series followed Fantastic Journey too. But it was just like, it was right in that little sweet spot between like the kind of cold 70s kind of sci-fi, but before Star Wars,
Yeah.
It's funny too, because in shows like that, normally when I was growing up and watching these types of sci-fi shows and movies, whenever there was a kid in the movie with a bunch of adults, I tended to kind of resist it a little bit because as a kid, I kind of wanted to identify more with the adults. But in that series, what I loved about your character is this was a guy who I felt was treated like an equal and respected and could, hold his own with this group of adults. And it was a shame. I would have loved to have seen more episodes, certainly more seasons if possible, because I thought there was a lot of room to grow.
No. And that's what I liked about the part for myself, because one of the things as a kid, I always wanted to be an adult. Being a kid wasn't so much fun for me. What I got to do was fun, but I always identify with the adults. And so having a part where, I wasn't really playing a child. I mean, I wasn't doing childish things. We were all doing very grown-up things. And all the actors I work with treated me like an adult as well. So I loved doing it. It was a fun part to do. Plus, just all the fun stuff we got to do. So
you mentioned Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall had done a bunch of stuff for Disney before he did this project with you. But we've had people on the show who also worked with Roddy McDowall, just said wonderful things. And you developed a friendship with Roddy McDowall.
He was absolutely amazing. I mean, just one of the kindest people I have ever met, let alone actors, movie stars, stars I've worked with. And he really had a soft spot for me because, he started as a child actor.
Exactly.
He started when he was
knew
6 or 7 years old. So he knew what I had been through. And I don't know, we just got along like friends. And it was a very, mature friendship for me, but one that I adored. Because we did hang out when we weren't working, and we'd sit and chat and just talk about random things. I mean, when you talk about a compulsive television watcher, and I always loved this about him. Back when the TV Guide was a booklet you could flip through to find out what was on. Every Monday morning he would sit in his chair, and he had very poor eyesight, so he had these huge, very thick glasses that he needed to read. And even that, he needed to hold it really, book really close to his face because the TV Guide print was tiny.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had a pen, and he would go through and, flip through and underline stuff and just underline stuff and underline stuff. And I thought, how on earth is he going to watch? I said, I asked him what he was doing. And the funny response, the response was funny to me initially, but this is what he was like. He just said, "I'm looking for all my friends." And I said, "Your friends?" And he says, "Well, yeah, my best friends are in all these movies, and all these movies are on television now." And so he would underline them all. But because now we've got Betamax videotaping possibilities, because it was really kind of before VHS, I know, was out. But for some reason in the industry, we all liked beta. We thought it was better quality, yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
But he would have his assistant tape them all. And he collected them. He kept them, and he would watch everything he could. He had a massive collection of both 35 and 16 millimeter films that he would buy at auction. He would anytime he got a chance to buy them, and then he would have back then, a movie party, you had a projectionist come into your house and project a movie. I mean, that's if you could afford that, that's what you did. And that's what he did all the time. He just loved old movies.
And because he had been around for such a long time, he knew all these great behind the scenes stories. Yeah. Like with one of our guests, he said they would walk through the lot and he says, "Oh, that's where so-and-so would hang out. Oh, here's where so-and-so got together." Yeah. He knew like all the Hollywood behind the scenes stories.
Yeah. I mean, he had tons of friends in the business. He was very close to a lot of people. And, so I just felt very special being his friend, and we stayed in touch for years. I mean, it wasn't like we hung out, but he sent me postcards 2 or 3 times a year. He'd send me Christmas cards. I would send him Christmas cards. So we remained in touch pretty much until his death. And so I was always grateful for that friendship, because it's funny. There's a lot of Hollywood people have a lot of Hollywood friends, and it's a close-knit community. And I didn't really hang out with the people I worked with, outside of working with them. So, maintaining that relationship was very special for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we wanted to hit on 78 though. 78 was a big year. It's a couple TV movies I want to ask you about too.
Oh, sure.
Now, Devil Dog, the Hound of Hell, which is one of the greatest titles ever, by the way. Oh. 78, directed by Curtis Harrington, another very well-established horror genre director.
Night Tide,
Queen of Blood, What's the Matter with Helen? And he was, a genre veteran. And also the fact that you got to work with Kim Richards again. But I think I remember seeing you talk about how that wasn't even necessarily planned. It just kind of you guys didn't know you're going to be in the movie together, and you showed up together as brother and sister again.
Really,
it was absolutely hilarious, because it was, for me, it was another audition, movie of the week. Okay, good, I got it. Awesome, I get to work, and I have a sister in it, and I didn't know who she was because I didn't read with anybody. I just read on my own. So when I show up and I see Kim, and Kim sees me, we start laughing. And I said, "I can't believe this." I said, we're playing brother and sister again. She says, "I know. Isn't this weird?" I said, "Yeah, it is weird." And I finally started, I asked Curtis, "Did you guys know that Kim and I have played brother and sister in 2 Disney movies?" And his face went white.
Really?
No.
Because he had no idea. I said,
"Really?
Escape to Witch Mountain, Return from Witch Mountain." He was like, "Oh my God." Because he literally said if he had known that, he would have cast one or the other of us.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys just look so much alike. You were perfect for brother and sister. I said, "Yeah, you think?"
See, nowadays everybody's got publicists. They would have turned it into a thing.
That would be the gimmick.
Yeah.
It's like together again,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's sort of like the dark side of the Witch Mountain pairing.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, God. Right. No, I love that thing because it is so unbelievably cheesy. It is so over the top. It is so poorly done. We all are terrible in it, which makes it absolutely hilarious and a must see.
But for listeners that are no, Sean, can you give a little?
Well, yeah, it's basically
of
some Satanists,
including Martine
Beswick, and R.G. Armstrong, great character actor.
Love him.
Somehow they decide that in order to take over the world with Satan, they had to do it through puppies. So they just randomly they have a dog that mates with Satan, I guess, and then the dog has puppies.
Yes, right.
And then they just go around random neighborhoods and giving
you're assuming thing
families, and so it is so ludicrous, but done perfectly straight, and that's what makes it so enjoyable.
I love it.
In addition to Ike and Kim, you have Richard Crenna, like one of the most reliable, always great character actors. Yeah. Yvette Mimieux, Lou Frizzell, like great character actors. It's just this quaint little ridiculous horror TV movie that plays very fun. And
I will say
really
this:
enjoyable.
I think it's shot really well, and I think it really, I mean, for a TV movie, I think it moves. And it does. Yeah. I mean, it goes all over the place. And and I have to say, too, that watching it again, I was surprised at how effective the Hound of Hell is.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, they obviously had an extremely limited budget. But I mean, but like, how was it working with the dogs? They always say, working with animals is tough. Was there a lot of, how was that?
Was it hellish?
No, actually, that's the thing. I loved working with animals. I truly fell in love with the entire profession and industry of studio animal work and training. And I had very close relationships with a lot of animals at Disney because, it's kind of my running joke. If I post or tweet something, inevitably, if I wasn't with an animal, I wasn't working. I mean, that's just kind of my byline for me because so I loved working with dogs. I learned how to work with them. They're professional. They love to work. That's the other thing is studio dogs love to work because they're highly trained, incredibly intelligent, and they're always being rewarded and they're just having a blast. So even when they're being vicious, it's actually part of the game that they get to play. It just looks like what it looks like when it's done properly. So it's been one of my many great joys, but one of my great joys to work with dogs like that. And as all kinds of other animals too. It's a very interesting thing. So no, I had a blast with it. Not everybody likes it. No, not everybody likes it because it requires patience. They become the center of attention and more often your job as an actor, the pressure goes up because you got to get it right every time because they're not going to get it right every time. So you got to make sure when they get it right, you've gotten it right too. Otherwise it takes a really long time. To get some things done. But no, he was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. One of the scariest things in that film to me, actually, after having watched it recently again, is the wallpaper in the house that you guys are in. It's headache inducing. the 70s wallpaper everywhere.
That was a very amazing, typical 70s house. It was an actual house, a practical location. They didn't build sets for that because they didn't have the money. So we went. See, a lot of things like that were done that way. Where there's all these cottage industries in Hollywood. A lot of people who have interesting or typical homes or traditional homes will put their homes available on this casting. There's a casting site. I'm sure. I don't know it's all online now, but there used to be a book you could just look up whatever type of house you wanted. And people rented them out and they would move out of their own home. So you could come in and shoot for the 2 or 3 weeks and then move back in. It was incredibly bizarre to me, but we did a lot of that. So
we got to shoot Devil Dog in your house.
And
vacation.
But Kim and I had school in one of the daughter's upstairs bedrooms. So we're in the pink room, with the twin bed and the desk, and it was just all the dolls. And I thought, this is weird. This is how it works.
Hey man, it's Hollywood, okay?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Look, and I know you say it's a cheesy film. Understand there are people out there like us that just love it. Okay.
Yeah.
We love it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. No, and I'm glad to hear that. I think it's great. I mean, no one's more grateful than I am that we have all these amazing opportunities to revisit these films.
I think it's better than it's given credit for. I really do. And I also, although I will say this, I think Richard Crenna, it takes a while for him to really act. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes down and he's kind of like, okay, like you would go to bed at night going, well, my wife is having an affair with,
he takes things kind of pretty easily.
Oh, well,
my kids are
tomorrow's another day.
Yeah. My kids are drawing satanic symbols on the floor upstairs, but hey,
that seems odd. But then when he finally snaps into action, he's like off to Ecuador.
In no time.
I will say, Ike, the one issue though that I remember the ad in TV Guide, and because it was Devil Dog, the Hound of Hell, my parents weren't exactly into having me watch it. Because, trying to be a good Catholic fan, that kind of thing. But I was able to sneak in and watch it. I felt like I was doing something bad. Oh,
Well,
That's great.
so, and speaking still of animals, when it comes to insects, that same year,
Oh yeah.
Terror Out of the Sky, which is kind of a little bit rare in that it is a TV movie sequel to another standalone TV movie, which was The Savage Bees. And this they returned some of the characters played by different actors, but this was again, just like UFOs and Bermuda Triangle, the killer bees are also the zeitgeist of the time.
Oh, yeah, we were all anticipating being taken over by these things. Yeah.
Yes. Again, you had like Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., Dan Haggerty, Richard Hurd, a lot of great actors. But what was that working like? Because you had real bees. Were you ever stung?
Yeah, I don't talk about this quite often, and I haven't covered it on my own podcast yet. So you getting the scoop here.
All right, here we go.
Oh, good job, Sean.
It was very interesting because part of my audition was they asked, "Are you allergic to bees?" And I'm not. I never have been, and I wasn't to the best of my knowledge. So I said, no, of course not. And they said, no, you really have to tell the truth because you're going to be working with actual bees. And I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. But no, I'm not allergic. So that's not a problem. I don't know about working with the bees, but they said, no, well, it'll all be fine. We just need to know. So then I end up getting cast and I show up and I'm beyond amazed. I thought I had no idea how they were going to facilitate this, because there were no digital effects back then. Okay. Special effects were practical or they were photographic and the photographic effects were not that refined. And so I just thought, how are they going to do this? And then we ended up having a meeting with the beekeeper on our first day.
Wow.
And the beekeeper said, because I ended up working with Poindexter, a child actor that I worked with on Return from Witch Mountain again. He was in the Boy Scouts. We were a Boy Scout troop, basically trapped on a school bus, being attacked by this swarm of bees. And Tova Feldshuh is the actress who was the adult in the room driving the bus, and she was part of one of the scientists or something like that, trying to figure out how to manage this incredible crisis that was happening to this community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But so all the boys and I are standing around, and some of the crew members who hadn't been educated about this had to listen to this little lecture. And he explained to us the behavior of bees. He said, they're honeybees. He said, they're not aggressive. The only reason a honeybee will sting you is if you try to swat it. And the only reason they will do that is because if they see some movement on your part as a threat, no matter where they are, they think it's a threat against the hive. And so he goes on and on and on about all this. He says, you will never get stung as long as you don't swat them. If they land on you, just do your best to ignore it and it'll go away. So now we're all thinking, holy crap, how many bees are we going to have potentially crawling on us? And how often are we going to have to exercise that inner, self-control about not swatting at a bee that lands on you? But I don't have an innate fear of these things. So my phobias are more about gnats. Gnats, the annoying things that are going to get into my eyes and ears, and I'm not going to be able to handle it. So I'm like this. So then he says, okay, we're going to go ahead and shoot the first scene. So the AD calls out and says, okay, let's release the bees. And I thought, this is going to be fascinating. So the beekeeper goes out and he's not in a suit. He's just, dressed in normal clothes like the rest of us, but he's got this big box, this plastic box with a lid on it. And it's just dark inside. You can kind of see movement in there. Right. He opens the lid and I kid you not, I hope I'm not exaggerating, because I think it literally it was over 1 million honeybees he had in this box. And they go up like this cloud, like this funnel cloud in the sky and start to swarm. And they're starting to swarm. And all of a sudden you hear the sound of of them flying around. And we were just absolutely, completely amazed. And of course I learned about this on the show, but I guess anyone knows anything about honeybees is that they are highly pheromone driven creatures. Right. The queen exudes or gives off this very, very powerful pheromone that the worker bees are attracted to, and they've been able to cultivate that, extract it from queens. So it was this little gel on a Q-tip that he would have, and the crew needed the bees to swarm the bus. So you got all these people with these little swabs putting dots of this stuff all over it, and this swarm sure enough, just goes right for the bus and starts crawling all over the bus.
Wow.
And I went, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And it's much more amazing than the story we're telling, for sure. Then we're inside the bus and we were shooting inside the bus and had the bees crawling all around the outside. And of course, not every single bee gets the message, and they tend to float off or move around and go to other places. And, a lot of people got stung because they were nervous or scared. And yes, I had bees land on me and crawl on me, but I actually got used to it, and it didn't bother me. The thing that fascinated me then, the second part of that, was when we had to change locations. So you got a million bees out there on swarming around a bus, and the AD says, okay, that's a wrap here. We're going to move, the company down the road to this other place.
Right.
Then he shouts out the beekeeper's name and says, collect the bees. And I said, oh, this is going to be good. Collect the bees. I mean, what more ludicrous request could you hear on a set?
What do you do?
So he says,
lunch.
okay, sure. Well, he goes to his box again and opens it up, and there's another box in, like some of the small box inside. And he opens the lid on the smaller box, and it is full of this gel, like 100 times what has been painted on the side of the school bus.
Right.
And he just starts waving it in the air. Like, he just does this. I'm moving my arm around for you guys. There's no video for you, so you have to believe me. Waving my arm in circles over my head, because that's what he was doing. And I kid you not, they all started to, like, one went, then another, then 100, then 1,000, then 10,000. And they just all headed towards him. And he set that open box down inside the big plastic box and left and just stood there with his arms crossed. And still almost every single bee went back inside the box. He flipped the lids closed and said, I'm ready to go. And we took them to the next location. It was just incredible.
That's so bizarre.
The weird stuff you get to do as an actor is really kind of amazing. But another kind of trivia story, where we were shooting out in Santa Clarita, which is quite a ways outside of Los Angeles. It's in a much more deserty kind of area, dry area, where they don't naturally have a lot of honeybees. And the other thing that we learned is that wherever honeybees are, yellow jackets will show up frequently for some reason. They're either after the honey. The yellow jackets are after the sweet stuff. Mm. So the yellow jackets started to then populate the set. Because people were drinking sodas, Cokes and root beers and all that, they had their cans out. All of a sudden, people were finding yellow jackets crawling in and out of
the sugary
stuff, their drinks, because they were after the sugar.
Oh my gosh.
And one person actually drank their drink, and they swallowed a yellow jacket that started stinging them in the throat. Inside. And they had a horrible allergic reaction to it. The yellow jacket, not a bee, but a yellow jacket, and had to be medevaced out to UCLA.
Oh my gosh.
She ended up, she was fine, but went through a horrific experience.
Wow.
And that was the only really scary thing that happened. But it's like, it's just, I don't know. I'm always so excited for these new experiences, because you don't know anything about it. You learn something. And, I've never been afraid of bees since. It's
right.
Not that I was before. I really wasn't. I just didn't know. I thought, okay,
but a valuable lesson to learn.
Yeah.
You're drinking a soda on a set filled with bees and yellow jackets.
They started putting something flat on top of all their drinks. Everybody
Smart.
was like, you had to.
Smart.
So
It's also fun to sort of rediscover some of these movies. And I think that one is currently on YouTube. But some of the character actors who show up in these, Philip Baker Hall, younger at the time, and he ended up making a name for himself as an older character actor. Richard Hurd, as was mentioned, and also Charles Hallahan, who was a kind of a heavyset character actor who would have a very memorable death scene in The Thing just a few years later.
Right. That's right.
As Norris. And Steve Franken, who had played a technician in Westworld. So, that's just part of the fun of seeing. And then, again, Poindexter, who I had recognized from Return from Witch Mountain, was, I guess he was Tina Yother's brother from Family Ties.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Right. That's awesome.
But I also have to applaud the bees. because having live bees really makes those movies work. The Savage Bees and Terror Out of the Sky, because when you watch a film like The Swarm, where they use a lot of effects to achieve the bees flying around, just completely takes me out of it. But when you see real bees covering a school bus
and the real actors,
and you know, and that movie, okay, you know, there's the love triangle that, you know, okay, you know, but we know that we're getting to this point where we're going to have the all-out bee attack. And when you get there, it's so good, and the tension and the drama inside the bus is so good. And then
it's got the highlight scene, really.
Really, and I just thought it was very effective, especially for a television movie.
Well, and you know, bottom line, it was fun to do, and you know, the tension isn't, because when you look around and you see real bees all over the place, it's not really hard to pull out that level of stress,
right.
You know, because it's like right there. So you know, that does make it interesting. You know, and I was just blown away that they could do what they did, you know, period. So,
and once again, you're a very strong character who helps the female lead, Tova Feldsha, through this situation.
Well, I enjoy that. You know, our relationship working together was awesome. And, you know, she's a great lady and wonderful to work with. And I always liked her work. I thought she was a very, very interesting actress who probably didn't do as much as she could have or should have. Yeah.
Right. So I think we can jump to 1982. Which is a great year, by the way, for horror sci-fi fans. So many great things came up. But so Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, Ike, you had said, as you said, you are a fan of science fiction, and were you a fan or pretty familiar with the original show, Star Trek?
Absolutely. I grew up watching it. I loved Star Trek, the original series. You know, my family, we had it on the TV in its original run. And so it was very much imprinted for me from a very, very young age. And whenever it was on in syndication, I would watch it and just eat it up. You know, what I loved about it wasn't just science fiction. It was very philosophical, and it was very intelligent. It was very smart, and they were asking big questions and, you know, trying to come up with answers that were, you know, humanizing in a way that, in dealing with issues that are very hard to deal with in kind of any other genre for that matter. So, you know, and so, I truly loved it. And I liked the motion picture, the first film. I enjoyed that. And I've told this story many times, but see, my sci-fi fandom goes back to 2001, Space Odyssey, which I saw in the movie theaters when I was 7 years old, when it was first released.
Wow.
Me too.
Wow.
And so that's awesome. I mean, you know, it's kind of rare to hear that, but, you know, clearly at 7 years old, I didn't have a clue what it was, you know,
right. Of course.
Right.
You know, but I was so blown away by what I was seeing, and I knew it was a movie, but the stuff looked so real, and I loved space anyway. And here is this very, very realistic representation of all these things. And it was just so beautiful to watch that it, again, was something that just hooked into me. And I fell in love with it. It still remains my favorite movie to this day. I mean, I watch it very frequently, entirely too frequently, because I just like to get lost in it. And I think, you know, and people complain about it. One of the things people complain about is this just a long, slow moving, plotting film with not much going on. And they said the same thing about Star Trek, the motion picture. It was too long and plotting and spent too much time, you know, flying around the alien spaceship and looking at it. But that's what I loved.
The V'ger stuff is pretty amazing.
Gorgeous.
And also, like, nothing else is, I've never seen anything else like that stuff. Like all the V'ger stuff is still very unique. And it has its...
That concept alone, V'ger, I thought was one of the smartest hooks for science fiction, period. And it was perfect for Star Trek. I thought it was absolutely perfect. But there was something about it. I mean, you know, it does go a little awry. I think the whole thing about, you know, the blending of the human and her and the all that stuff at the end was, it's like, okay, we're going a little far with this, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the movie. I loved watching it. And I like good design. I like seeing good design and getting to spend time with all of that. It's important to me. So I love the movie. And when you know, it was critically not well received, even though it did well, it was like disappointing because I knew, being, you know, in the industry, that Paramount was looking to potentially turn Star Trek into a new movie franchise because they were, you know, trying to compete with Star Wars, et cetera, and, you know, other films that were coming out. So I thought it was pretty much over. And I, you know, like working for Disney, I desperately wanted to be involved in anything Star Trek if it were possible.
Right.
And so then when I heard about Wrath of Khan was going to be produced, I was ecstatic just as a fan. You know, I just couldn't wait for the movie. And then I got a call for the audition and I thought, oh my God, there's a part in this for me. Good grief, to be a part of the Star Trek franchise. This would be incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Good God. So I worked really hard, harder than I usually did at auditions, and of course got the part. And I was absolutely just thrilled. I thought, this is fantastic. Because I mean, this can go on forever. I mean, good grief, who knows? And so then I get the script and I'm reading through it and come across my part. I mean, I knew at the audition I was reading for Scotty's nephew, so already I have a familial relationship to an original cast member. So
awesome.
that had to mean something, you know, in terms of the longevity. And then I'm reading through it, and the battle happens, and then I'm being carried by limp body to the bridge, and then I'm in the sick bay, and all of a sudden I die, and I just went, I had the script in my hand, I just went, all the breath left my body. I just said, oh no. I said my Star Trek career ended before it even had a chance to begin. So,
you know, they can go back in time. They can do
science fiction.
We can bring it back.
That was always my joke. You know, they Spock gets this great, coffin gets this great send off. It's sent down into the, you know, the Genesis planet. And I thought, where was my coffin? Why didn't they just send me?
Yeah, really. What happened to you?
It's just not fair.
Because you stayed at your post.
Who died in that movie?
Yeah.
Just send them all to the Genesis planet.
Yeah.
I mean,
why did they do that? Yeah.
Well, we didn't make as good a deal as Nimoy did. I think that was
but what's great though is that you do get a death scene, which is cool.
With Kirk, you know, I mean,
and you're being held by Scotty.
And it's a very powerful scene.
Yeah, it really is.
And maybe you could tell me about this. I had heard that James Doohan had more to do in that scene when he says about you stayed to the post, but because of Nicholas Meyer just had to cut stuff out. Was there more to the scene? Did you have more than what was actually in the film?
I have to tell you, I don't really remember anymore. They probably, if there was more in the script, I don't remember it.
There are a few more lines because there was a director's cut that was released.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Which, you know, added back in my scene with Shatner, which was my most fun scene to do.
So good.
In the film. And that was originally cut from the film, which is completely shocking to me because, as all the Star Trek lore, anyone who knows about the history of this film knows, no one could understand why Scotty was so upset about this one cadet.
Right.
And all the exposition about my relationship to him was in that scene. And it was just completely, the scene wasn't gone because it was still pivotal to the story, but they cut out the entire middle of it.
Right.
And
there's no context.
Nick Myers, he had no idea. Nick didn't even have any idea why, because it had nothing to do with him. Someone else made the cut. So when he got his director's cut, he insisted that scene be put in. And as a matter of fact, I always like to say this because he's written one of the best memoirs I've ever read. It's called A View from the Bridge. And it's about his career in Hollywood, but he talks a lot about Star Trek 2 and how it came about and how he, you know, struggled to find an idea that was going to be worthy enough to resurrect this thing that everyone was terrified about. And he had a very limited budget. I mean, you know, for a big budget Paramount science fiction Star Trek movie, it was much smaller than the first film. Right. He had to work with as little as possible. He did every cheat that he could come up with to make certain things work. And so he didn't have a whole lot of room to shoot a lot of extra story if he thought it didn't belong. So I don't doubt that there are some other stuff that got added back in. I just don't exactly remember what it was. But I enjoyed doing that scene. I'd never done a death scene before. And, you know, it's interesting how, you know, when you're you're trying to make something like that, like interesting and emotional for the audience, what you'll come up with. And so I was happy to do it. I was thrilled to be a part of the film. Again, it's like, how many people get to walk on the actual bridge of the Enterprise? And that bridge was completely enclosable and enclosed. They had to pull sections out to move crew and equipment in, and then they would close it back up.
Wow.
Cool.
When I walked in there the first time, it took my breath away. I mean, I thought it looked real. I mean, most movie sets and props never look like what they look like in the movies. They always look, and if any of you have ever had a chance to hold any of those things or buy any of those things where you've seen them and you go, this is just a molded piece of plastic and it's poorly painted at that. I can't believe I bought it, that this thing could actually fire a laser, but that's why they call it movie magic, because it's so magical what happens when something's translated to film and you see it up there and all of its, grainy tapestry. But this thing looked real. Everything looked real. Buttons worked. They had all kinds of things, and the lights were fantastic. And the only thing that told me, it was incomplete was the ceiling was open so that they could have lights up there. Right. But I just kept looking around thinking, oh my God, I wish I could just touch more stuff. But limited time and sure. There's only so much you can do. But
it's funny. It's funny, Ike, that you got to work with Nicholas Meyer. Nicholas Meyer has been considered by many to be the savior of Star Trek, because Star Trek the motion picture, it did okay, didn't do as well. Star Trek 2, this was, we'll see how it goes. And I would say that many people consider that one to be the best.
I think
Star Trek film ever.
By far, still to this day, it's that's the thing is, I think with Star Trek the motion picture, they were trying to make a big sci-fi movie as opposed to a good Star Trek movie. I think that didn't have the feel and the spirit and the vibe of the classic Trek. And that's why bringing back Khan in the second one, like, that movie is lightning in a bottle. That movie is perfect. And I just watched it again recently to get ready for the podcast. It's written so well. Yeah. Like, the plot is so good. And it's this battle of wits it's very similar to the Balance of Terror episode, the classic episode. Yes. Where it's like Kirk against the Romulan, and they never meet physically. They're just in ships, and it's so well done.
And you can also argue that movie jump-started everything that followed. The Next Generation, all the other shows. If that movie had not been a success, you would not have had any of that stuff.
It hits the exact right tone of it's a little bit over the top, but just like Shatner and Montalban are so perfect in their level of where they are, and like everybody is
scene chewing is so.
But it's just right though. It's perfect for that movie.
Perfect. Love it.
But also, Sean, you have the whole thing of Kirk thing. Gallivanting around spaces for the young. It's like you've got that whole thing about age. I mean, it's so great on so many levels. Yeah. And you get you get a death scene, man.
I know.
Well, and speaking of the death scene, by the way,
and everything,
you have to get this director's cut. It's
I have it.
It's so good. And
I have it. Unless there's a new one, as soon as it came out on DVD, I bought it for sure.
And especially when it comes to your death scene, I watched on YouTube, there was a shot by shot comparison. And what was interesting to see was that there are different takes that are used. And so what you get to see in the director's cut is the camera stays on you longer to see you finally die. Whereas in the original version, you get a scene from like the back of your head. But in this one, you get to see you, when you expire. And it's great. It adds an emotional exclamation point to that scene that was missing.
Yeah.
I would say, Ike, your performance in that movie was the most human.
That's interesting, because I haven't seen the original cut of it in so long, because I always watch the DVD that I own of the director's cut. So I'm more familiar with that than I am the original. Right. So that's good to know. It'd be interesting to check out. But
I'll send you the link.
Literally at every convention I do, everyone I ever meet who's a Star Trek fan and loves that movie says to me that that's their favorite one. And what my 2 cents about its effectiveness is that you don't have to know anything about Star Trek to enjoy that movie.
Right.
That's right.
It turned people. I know people like my co-host and dear friend Jonathan Rosen that I do my podcast with. That was the first Star Trek thing he had ever seen, and he fell in love with the series after that. I think it was.
Did you
he
know?
might have watched the series, but of the original, he saw that and then went back and watched the other thing. So I think it was a springboard. There were a lot of people who don't like science fiction who still like that movie, and this sounds sexist, but a lot of women who did not want to go see this movie with their boyfriends or their husbands went and really enjoyed it. Yeah. So it has universal themes in it that Nick very consciously, and you learn this through reading his memoir, tapped into, because of course I never had time to have conversations with him about it or how it came about. But, the whole the battle between, his entire concept for it was he was a huge fan of, war movies, from the 50s and naval battle scenes. He said that's what spaceship fighting is. It's a naval battle. You got two ships, right? Ships in the ocean. Yes. So he looked back at the classic naval battle films for his cues for how to set this fight up between these two admirals. And he didn't know anything about Star Trek when he started. He hadn't seen
it's
the
amazing.
show. It blows me away. And he went, did his research. He watched everything, and he mined it. So he was in a lot of ways was like a fresh fan.
I was going to say,
so it was like now he can create something exciting for everyone else without being so caught up in the original mania of it,
the history of it all.
I was thrilled he did it. I was thrilled it was done. I would have been thrilled it exists even if I hadn't been in it. So to get a chance to be in it, and meet the entire original cast except for Walter Koenig. He was not on the ship because he was on a different ship.
Yes.
So he wasn't around, but I got to spend a little time with everybody, and that was just incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you were making it, Ike, did you have any sense that it was going to be as successful as it was?
No, not at all.
Wow.
Not at all. Because truth of the matter is everyone was so tense and nervous and uptight working on that film.
Really?
And I, that was my experience. I don't know what other people's experiences were, but by the time I did that film, I've been working in the business for, all my life. I'd been on every kind of set you could be on. And I have, some sets are tense. Some sets are, most of them are easygoing, and everybody knows their job. They're happy with their job and they're just moving forward, and we'll see what happens with it. But there was a lot of pressure on this movie.
Wow.
There was a lot of pressure. And so the cast was tense. They were, they worked sometimes a little too hard to make things work, and I know they had the best of intentions, but what ends up happening is when you try too hard, oftentimes it can create this rippling effect.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I thought, God, I really hope they don't ruin their own film by overdoing it.
Sucking the fun out of it,
Yeah.
And you never know until it's all done and edited and put together too, how it's going to be.
I mean, the one person who did know was Nick, and he was truly, they call it helming a picture, like you helm a ship, because you're the hot red center of everything that story is going to be. Right. And he knew the story he needed to tell. He knew how he wanted to tell it. And he also knew how to manage the personalities, because, these were all big personalities. Especially Shatner, and rightly so. And they all wanted it to be, no one walked through that movie. No one walked through their job or performance.
They
were there. Jimmy Doohan was constantly trying to figure out how he could, bring a little something, more to what he was doing, because everyone just wanted it to be a good movie. And it turned out that way. So
that's awesome.
Now, coincidentally, you were in another movie in 1982 that had Paul Winfield in it, and it's not a genre film, but it's called Dreams Don't Die.
Yes,
where you play a young subway graffiti artist who's at sort of a crossroads in his life, because he can either go down the path of being a juvenile delinquent or he can become a professional commercial artist. And this movie wasn't on my radar until recently, but I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was really worth watching. It's kind of the Citizen Kane of subway graffiti artist movies. and I think that your performance, first of all, I'm grateful that you actually affected a New York accent in it, convincingly, because what drives me crazy, one of my pet peeves is when you've got, shows that take place in regions like Maine and nobody's doing a Maine accent. And I'm from New York, and it would have, my head would have exploded if you hadn't at least tried to do a New York accent, but your accent was flawless. And it's a really well done, sensitive portrayal of a kid at a crossroads, and there are little detail touches in it where you're in a phone booth and you do this little graffiti on the glass in the phone booth, and it's convincing subway graffiti. It's like I felt like you almost had to practice that.
Oh, I did. Actually, I did. But I'm going to go back to your compliment and give you now credit for probably giving me the best compliment I've ever been given as an actor, because I was so scared to death to do that, to try to attempt that accent, because I kind of pride myself on being able to have a certain amount of mimicking ability, and I had to learn it very, very quickly, because I got cast in that within 48 hours of getting on a plane and and heading to New York to shoot it from LA. And so I had really no time to prepare at all. So I had to listen to almost the entire crew, of course, was from New York and from different parts of the boroughs. So I kept hearing all these different accents and all of that. And I thought, God, I'm just gonna do the best I can. And I was really scared to death to do it. So I'm glad if you're a New Yorker and it sounded good. You nailed it.
You nailed it.
Good.
Yeah, I would never have known you weren't from New York.
Yeah. But so I'm proud of that. Thank you very much. But yeah, it was very interesting to do, because it was again a hot topical subject matter at the time, because New York then, and if you live there, this, it was a mess with graffiti. I mean, the subway trains were, there were artists who were trying to do interesting things, but I mean, they were destroying public property, and it was becoming a real menace for everyone. And the story is kind of based on the experiences, or a little bit on the life of an actual well-known graffiti artist at the time. And I forget his name, but he was our technical advisor, because he came in and he actually did the final paintings that you see. He taught me how to do it, and I got to go practice on my own train by myself with cans of spray paint, and I got to actually graffiti up the side of a train car just to learn how to do it, so I could do it on camera. And then of course he taught me the signature, because that's what every graffiti artist has. Right. And they sign their name anywhere they can with these indelible black broad tipped they're not Sharpies, but felt tip pens. And so I had to practice this thing, because he designed it. He designed the signature, and then I had to duplicate it. Wow. And so, there was a lot of, again, interesting work to get to do, to bring that story off. But I have to say, getting a chance to work with Paul Winfield was just amazing. I mean, I was a big fan of his. Just a great actor and such a sweet man.
He's terrific in it too.
Yeah. He's very good. And we got along great, and did a lot of work together to make the scenes to come off, because, it was a movie of the week. So we were still under, scheduling constraints and budget constraints at time. And you have to get as much work done as quickly, as you can. And so we would often rehearse together on the side just to run through our lines, so that we were as well prepared, to shoot those scenes as we could be. And he was just very interesting. It was a very interesting actor to me. You could see his mind would be going somewhere as his words were following. And I watched it happen. His eyes were gorgeous. And I mean, I fell into them thinking, okay, what are you thinking about as you're saying this stuff? And I really felt like he was speaking to me, as this character. It was marvelous.
I also felt that the actress who played your mother, Judy West, the scenes that you had with her were very real and very grounded and quite emotional. Like I really enjoyed the chemistry between you two.
Oh, thank you. I mean, she was lovely. She was just a very genuine actress, and yeah, it came across really well. We did not have a lot of time together. We had a couple scenes, but I thought she did a wonderful job as well. Yeah.
So yeah, Dreams Don't Die from 1982. Worth checking out for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, I appreciate that because it's a little lesser known. And I know it was available on Amazon Prime for a really long time. And I tried to check it out the other day for something. And suddenly it said we're having a problem with the video. So I don't know if they fixed it. I don't know if it's there or not. But,
No, I think it is. I think it's available on streaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one film I would just like to just do a brief little shout out for. I do have quite a bit of love for the amazing cosmic awareness of Duffy Moon.
Oh. Awesome. That's great. I got to tell you, that was the most hilarious. That was the cheapest production I've ever worked on. I could not believe it. They shot that ABC. It was an ABC after school special with Lance Kerwin and I and Jim Backus and
Jim Backus.
Yeah, I mean, and some other
Jerry Van Dyke
character actors. Jerry Van Dyke. It's like it went out of my head for a second. Jerry Van Dyke. They shot that on 16 millimeter, if you can believe that.
Really?
A TV show shot on, because that's how cheap it was. I mean, it wasn't low budget. It was cheap. And the director's name is Larry Ellikin, and he was ABC's go-to guy when you had to shoot. You do a 4-week shoot in 2 weeks, and you had to do it for $1.50, and all you had, was sandwiches and some water to get through this. It was amazing how cheap it was.
No,
but we had so much fun. It was a goofy thing. What a wonderful goofy story, and it's got like some kind of cult following now. It's like people quote Duffy Moon and they don't even know what it's from. So yeah, because it was like the chant was, "You can do it, Duffy Moon." And I'm playing this highly insecure, scared, too small for my age kid who gets bullied, and he wants to affect his own power in his life and reads a self-help book about how to do this, and thinks that he's implementing all these concepts and having some major effect on his world when he really isn't. And it's a delightful little lesson for everyone out there that you just got to be yourself, man. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. And believing in yourself and believing in your abilities. I mean, I love the scene where you're building the rock fence for the neighbor. And, these giant rocks that you're trying to move. And there's a point when I'm watching it where I think, is a supernatural thing going to enter the story? But no, it's really just you. I'm going to do it. I'm going to work as hard as I can to build this fence. And then I love the scene afterwards where you're in bed and you're, wrecked from all this physical activity. But I think it's just a delightful film.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I know it's a lot of people remember it. And when I post things about it, I do get a lot of great comments about it. And that was just back in the, especially the ABC After School Special series, it's fondly remembered. I did a few of them, and they were just always fun to do because they really were trying to communicate something to children.
Something positive.
It was important through story, which I think is great. Yeah.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
So, Ike, as it went into the 90s and into the early 2000s, you started to do some voiceover work, some stuff for animation, and then you got into actual digital animation too. That's a new part of your career. I wanted to talk about that. I
ended up moving into an area of film post-production called ADR, or looping. And it's a very obscure for people who don't know the business. People in the business who know what it is wish they would sell their arm to get into it, because it's probably the most fun, most creative, most actually lucrative areas of invisibility that you can participate in as an actor. Because I'm not a sound effects, I get credit as being a sound effects like professional of some kind. And what I did was I worked for one group, then I splintered off from there and formed a group with some other partners, where what we do is cast voices and actors and provide customized vocal sound effects for movies and TV shows, primarily movies. And what a lot of people don't realize, I mean, today it's a little bit different. But back when I started doing it, it was a fairly new organized industry, where when you have a movie, you see a restaurant scene and you hear everyone who's kind of talking and babbling and having conversations around the primary actors.
Right.
Everyone thinks that's recorded on set and that the extras are actually speaking, which is not true. They don't speak. Only the actors speak. So there is no audio for those people back there. Mm-hmm. and they have to recreate that. And it has to match what's going on screen. So you then bring in, if you're fortunate enough to be casting this kind of thing, you bring in other voice actors and a group of people anywhere from 5 or 6 to 10, 15, 20, or I've worked with 35 and 45 a day on movies like Gladiator and Titanic and films like that. But then we sit and we watch the scene and we just do that random conversation in the background. Or sometimes there's a character who is saying something and you don't hear anything from them. And then we come up with dialogue that fits, for whatever their mouth is doing. And then all of a sudden now you have these layered tracks of all this audio and it sounds like the real world. So we go in and create the real world as improvisational actors, and all kinds of things, from even radio calls, in a police car, you hear the dispatcher say something. Well, that's an actor. It's one of us, It's like
audio ambiance kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, you know what Foley is. Everybody knows what Foley is. Right. This is vocal Foley. You got Foley is a sound effects guy who makes all the sounds that you hear, clinking glasses and shuffling feet and all that kind of stuff. Well, we come in and we do the voice equivalent of that. And I did that for over 25 years. Wow. And so I retired from on camera. I was actually done with that in the early 80s. And I was fortunate enough to get into this business, and I fell in love with it because I didn't have to audition anymore. I just got called up for jobs and went in, and it's just so luxurious to say, but if I worked 3 or 4 days a week, I made a lot of money and I did really well. And and it's hard to find an area of any business where you can work that little and be rewarded so well for it.
Sure. Absolutely. It's usually the opposite.
Once you're in it, you then are part of it, and you stay there for as long as you want. And I did. And eventually I then retired from that because it was kind of time for me to move on. I had been in the business my whole life, and I just decided I needed a change. So I moved out of Los Angeles. I moved to Florida, and I had some opportunities to do some producing on some digital animation projects here that no one will ever hear of. I'm not even going to mention their names because they're so horrific. But that actually gave me the bug. I always loved animation. I've been a fan of animation. I've been an artist my whole life. I thought I wanted to be an animator at one point, and then decided I really didn't. So digital animation was kind of boutique studios were kind of cropping up all over the country, and you didn't have to be so centralized in LA or New York to produce animation. So I opened a studio, and we did very well for about 5 years. It's tough. An entrepreneurial venture like that is very difficult because it's all investment driven. And, we were creating original product, and, we did very, very well for a good stretch, but it just wasn't sustainable for us. So I ended up having to move away from that and let it go. But I had a great time. I worked with some very, very talented animators working for me, and it's just fun. So I've basically always had the opportunity to do things that I found really fun and extremely rewarding. But that whole ADR time period, people kind of thought I've just, kind of vaporized or disappeared.
Back to Witch Mountain.
Yeah. No, I stayed very active in the business, and for that, doing that. And as a matter of fact, talking about Disney, I always like to say, because one of the best ADR stages, sound recording stages in all of Hollywood, is on the Disney lot. And the engineer recorded us there, Doc Kane. I love to say his name because he looks like a Disney character and sounds like a Disney character. His name sounds like one. Doc Kane is a dear old friend of mine, and I worked there, at least 2-3 times a month for 25 years. So I never really left that studio.
Wow,
that's nice.
It remained a workplace for me throughout my entire career, and I feel blessed, absolutely blessed for that. So
that's awesome.
Well, Ike, just talking to you has been absolutely amazing. It's been such a thrill to have you.
Really,
very much so. Oh, an honor.
Now, but I know that you've got some other things going on. If people wanted to listen to you, or like, what can they look for? What can they listen to?
Where can they go?
Yeah, where can they go?
I just about for the last year, actually, our anniversary is coming up in April. My partner and I, Jonathan Rosen, who is an author, I think it's called Kidlit. Primarily, he's got some newer work. But anyway, we're doing a regular podcast that's available on YouTube called Pop Culture Retro. And
Pop
we've had a
culture
lot
retro.
Yeah, a lot of great guests. It's available in all the podcast formats as well if you search for it and look for it. And we've been having a blast. I mean, I got to interview the amazing Kreskin, for goodness sakes. You know, I mean, one of my favorite episodes that we've done. So Jonathan and I talk about stuff kind of like you guys do occasionally between each other. But we've been having some wonderful guests from George Chakiris from West Side Story,
Nice.
Aaron Murphy from Bewitched, and and yeah, we've been really fortunate to have some really fun people. So check that out. And I'm available on the social media platforms as well. You can search for my name, Facebook, and as at IKEISENMANN, and Twitter and Instagram. You can just put a hyphen between my first and last name and I'll pop up for you. And you can follow some really fun career stuff that I post quite a bit, and some other random, pop culture retro things myself. So there you go.
It's fantastic.
Sounds great. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
And I do.
Yeah.
I have a memoir. I'm shopping it this year. I don't have a publisher yet. I have written a memoir about my career that I'm really excited about that. And that's kind of how Jonathan and I came together through that project. So be looking for that sometime next year.
Please keep us posted, because when that happens, we want to let everyone know, because your career is absolutely amazing. I know you have other stories that you did talk about. So
just a treasure trove.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Movie, TV history. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. My wife says to me constantly, you don't have all, you need to put more in your book. You have way too many stories. And you never know, you never really know how many you have till suddenly start telling them. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness gracious. So it's a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. You were awesome. Absolutely. It was almost hard to follow you. You guys are going bounce. But I had a great time.
I'd like to raise my glass to give a toast.
Mine's empty now. Cheers.
To our wonderful guest, Ike Eisenmann. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Time for listener shout out.
Shout out. Which mountain shout out?
This goes out to Lars O'Mara from Florida.
All right, Lars.
Hey,
your show is so underrated and not appreciated enough. As much media and entertainment as there is to talk about, you've personally given me better days. A lot of what you talk about, I don't know. So spoilers are great to help me get hyped for watching it. You guys make me want to talk about my passions, monsters in movies as well as folklore. You guys, all four, have qualities I share with. I hope to get to meet you guys one day. Yeah. I'm in South Florida and only 29. I sometimes perform in comedy clubs also.
Oh, wow.
So the gist of what I'm saying is you four are my heroes.
Nice.
Among so many others. Inspiration, and just thank you for being who you are.
Well, Lars, you're welcome. And underrated? Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Lars,
that was
thank
lovely.
You for that heartfelt review. We appreciate that very much.
That was really, really appreciated.
Yes.
Well, that was a wonderful. That was really nice. That was really wonderful.
Yeah.
But guys, maybe I want to shift here a little bit, guys. Okay. I just want to give a shout out to someone who we just lost. Someone who was a giant in the effects and special effects world. Doug Trumbull. Trumbull, and what I wanted to say is, for people who don't know, remember, folks, Doug Trumbull, he was responsible for the special effects of 2001: Space Odyssey, Andromeda Strain, Close Encounters, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which we kind of talked about a little bit today.
Yeah. So many classics.
And of course, the iconic Blade Runner, the look and the feel, the special effects, that was Doug.
The Star Lost.
And Silent Running. And the funny thing is, people ask, well, Larry, what's your connection? Well, guys, I do have a personal connection to Doug Trumbull. I was fortunate enough. Listeners know that I worked at a special effects studio called Midland Productions in Northern California. And we were fortunate enough to, when Doug started to do his ride simulator company, he had done the effects work and directed or co-directed Back to the Future: The Ride at Universal Studios. And that was a very popular thing. Yeah. And so he started this company, this IMAX ride film. And because the studio that I worked at, we had made low budget simulator ride film movies, they came to see us and we made a deal to make 2 films. And this first one that we did was called Funhouse Express. It was an amazing experience. It was never been done before, where we were shooting in VistaVision, 48 frames per second. and our main little character, we had a little stop motion character in it named Jimmy, and it had never been done before. And Doug knew about what they were asking, and he knew about the effects, and he actually came to the studio to meet with us. And it was such a thrill to actually meet him and talk to him. And he signed my Close Encounters poster. He signed my Blade Runner poster.
Nice.
Could not have been more warm and wonderful. But and he took photos with us on the sets and stuff. But guys, the best part of this is we worked so hard on this film. Yas Takata, who's the director, did an amazing job. We got Anthony Scott, the star animator from Skellingtons, who had just finished Nightmare Before Christmas. The team of model builders who worked on this, they were just phenomenal. We put so much into this. When we were done, Doug and his team were so thrilled with it. And I said, guys, I'm gonna do a wrap party. We're gonna do a wrap party for the crew. Is it possible that Doug can give a video thank you or something to our team? I know it would mean a lot to him. Well, guys, not only did he do that, but what he did is he did this whole 6-minute presentation, and in the background is the simulator moving with his crew watching our film. And he came in and goes, hello, this is Doug Trumbull from IMAX Pride Film, and I want to thank all the guys at Midland Productions. And he mentions me by name and Yas Takata.
Was he like a chimney sweep before? He
actually did like a funny accent. And this was the Doug Trumbull I had never seen before. But he thanked us for our wonderful job and explained how the motion simulator works. And the timing of it was just perfect. It was a 6-minute thing.
Wow.
And I showed it to the crew at our wrap party, and everyone just was floored because we all idolized Doug Trumbull. And so, of course, that we did another project for him, and it was great. I hadn't had contact with him in ages, but just recently, he passed away, and it's meant a lot. And what's happened on Facebook, a lot of these people who I had worked with way back when have been posting pictures with Doug.
Yeah.
And it was just an experience to have made a film for this giant in the effects industry. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Douglas Trumbull. He gave us some great stuff. I mean, not only the special effects, but also the movies with Silent Running and Brainstorm. And anyway, just a giant movie lost.
Incredible.
Here.
Also want to do a quick mention of thanks to a few listeners who chimed in. A couple of episodes ago, we did one of our Who Would Win episodes.
Okay.
And listener Caleb Leland chimed in.
Right.
Said, a dear friend who passed years ago and I would argue the Batman versus Spider-Man matchup.
Okay.
I always picked Batman and he always picked Spidey. And to answer your question, both DC and Marvel put out Batman Spider-Man crossover comics in the 90s, pretty good reads.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Rich Schaefer said there's zero chance that Batman could defeat Spider-Man. Just based on Rogues Gallery alone, every Spider-Man villain is 100 times more dangerous and less problematic than Batman's. I could go on and on.
No, you know what, you know, buddy, you got to have more than that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's dangerous, and then there's Batman.
I mean, you're not even thinking about all the little things that Batman has on his belt and all these little tools and stuff.
His ability. His
taking the perspective of the potency of the villains that each of them has fought is an interesting angle, and I do credit Rich for taking that angle.
No. I love him bringing the argument. That's fantastic. I want more of this.
But it's not.
Give us more of these.
You know, if you're going to say that, Spider-Man, look. It's not going to be a
That's
hands
not how he said it, by the way.
Obviously, Spider-Man would win. No, not
I think
obviously.
if we look at the transcript. Okay. None of those sounds were written down.
That's good. We love to hear though from our listeners, like when they add their own ideas.
I love it.
And on the subject of Godzilla versus Gargantuas, Adam G. Holtz,
there we go.
Okay. What does he say?
What does he say?
Oh yeah.
Godzilla kicked their Happy Meal asses all up and down Main Street.
Well, there you go.
Well,
every once in a while he's right about something.
Adam, he's a tag team.
When I reminded Adam that all it took was 2 Mothra larvae to kick Godzilla's ass, Adam's answer was, "Yeah, but Godzilla didn't count on silly string."
And I would hardly call that kicking his ass.
Well, they did beat him.
It slowed him down a little bit.
Yeah, but still, they're baby Mothras, for God's sake.
Yes,
Well, hey,
yes.
And we'll continue the debate in the next who would win.
No, I want to do it now, Sean, because I don't want Adam to get away with that thing. And it's a hands-up Main Street game, but come on.
Look, we all love Godzilla. We hate to think of him losing. That's the bottom line.
And also, our listener Rockford J complimented me by saying I won the internet by coming up with Princess Ardala versus
right. Yes, that's correct. Yes,
actually, Sean, I agree. Yes, I agree. So, wait, did he post a picture?
Yeah, he put side by side photos of them, which it's amazing how their attire is very similar.
I know it made my day.
Yeah,
I still stand by my decision. I know you guys think differently, but you know.
All right, well, there you go.
All right.
And listeners, let's remind everybody that Monster Party merch is still available on our eBay store, which is Monster Party Store.
It's still available.
Still available.
Yes.
The cloth Monster Party PPE face mask is still available.
We've got them.
Yes, we do.
They can protect you from bees getting into your mouth.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, Sean, they can.
As is the glow-in-the-dark Monster Party logo T-shirt, available in 1 or 2 sizes. I think we still have men's large available.
Yes, made with pheromone, with bee pheromone.
No, there's no pheromone.
That's what makes it glow.
No, come on. See, now someone's gonna get the shirt and think, "Hey, no,
they're not.
Bees are gonna come to me.
No,
bees are gonna come.
Apparently,
sit
you're
on me.
the only sucker on the internet."
And shipping is free while supplies last.
Free, and we have large.
We have large.
We have large T-shirts.
We still have large.
We are going to, I swear, make some more T-shirts. But right now we have some larges, and large is a good size. You know, I mean, look.
Let's say you're small. You get a large.
All right, wait a minute. Let me think about it. Okay, I'm small.
Because I know you're a larger set guy. Let's imagine you're small. You can get one of these large shirts.
I do every day.
You can use it. You can use it to go to bed with.
You can wear like your robe
shirt.
Yeah. Or let's say you have a fairly big dog. You can put it on your dog. It could also be a dog shirt.
It could be a devil dog
shirt.
shirt.
That did you, Monster Party listeners? Why are you neglecting your dog?
Let's say you have an old pillow in your living room that you go, I don't know about looking at. You get the large Monster Party shirt. You can put the pillow inside the shirt, and now you've got a Monster Party cover for your pillow in your living room.
What pillow are we talking about? Because you ever notice, like, I don't know why this happens, but you got your pillow, and you for the most part sleep in it, and maybe you'll use it for your back every once in a while, but maybe there's a little bit of drooling. But then you take the pillowcase off, and it's like, what the fuck did this pillow go through? It looks like it was subjected to acid, and there's always these giant weird marks on it and stains and.
Well, I don't. Hey, man, I can't speak what's on your pillow.
What kind of sleeping habits you have?
I can't say it. You could take the shirt and stuff a pillow in it. I'm just saying. Hey,
you've had some weird marks on your pillows when you don't.
Have you come over my house and looked at my pillows? Is that what you're doing?
Listen. They're not dirty pillows. They're breasts.
Oh,
that's right.
Nice.
That's right.
Little trivia.
You know what?
Hello?
You know what I love about James? He can take anything and make it dirty.
And speaking of dirty pillows, if you happen to be a Patreon member and buy something from our eBay store, then we will throw in free goodies. courtesy of Jason Lindsay and Biff Bang Pow Toys and monster creator extraordinaire Ted Haynes.
Ted Haynes.
Oh, Ted
Haynes of the
Haynes.
show.
We love Ted Haynes.
And
Dude.
Jason.
So what can you
And
tell us
Jason,
about this
yes.
this Patreon stuff, Matt? What's that all about?
Yeah, is that something like from the Bermuda Triangle or something?
Oh man. Well, it's strange, but it almost feels like it's an area where there are different time zones. Because what it is it's this platform where if you join it, you will get access to bonus Monster Party material. And this could come in the form of audio episodes, special shows that we do, like Monster Party Masterpieces and Larry's Toy Time. Two
Larry's
great
Toy Time.
shows. Oh, we love it.
Great show.
As much as we rib Larry, I love looking at his stuff. And
more stuff coming.
He does a very
More
good
stuff.
job in presenting it. And I say that with all sincerity. We also have some amazing footage that James has put together from our trip to Japan.
It's like the raw footage of that
raw
trip.
footage. And what he's been doing, he's been editing these things into these segments where, they each have a theme where we go to a different city or a place.
Store,
And they're so much fun. And I said it the last episode, but I got to say it again. I mean, it really takes me back. It's like living it again. And that was such a fun trip. And to be, stuck always in what seems like this COVID nightmare to, be able to watch this stuff and like, hey, we're going back to Japan again.
Yeah, virtually exploring the city again.
It's so much fun.
It's so funny because that piece that we have up on YouTube, which it's our episode with all the footage, it's like all condensed. It's so great to watch. But the thing that I love that James has done is I forgot about a lot of the conversations and a lot of the things we discussed. And some of them are hilarious. I totally forgot about
ridiculous.
it.
Yeah.
And ridiculous. I mean, we're talking and fighting over like Sean's looking at certain monsters in a glass case and, I've got this one. I don't have that one. Yeah, but what about that one? It doesn't have the yellow on it. I mean, there were so many great things that we discussed. And
I don't know how many times Buck Rogers came up. For some reason,
it's like
we're in Japan. But it's a really good time. And then also my stepfather-in-law has created these science fiction and horror collections of various different stories. And we provide stuff like that. And we're always trying to think of new things that we can bring you to make you have a good time with this. But that's what you can find on Patreon.
Well, it sounds fantastic, but I don't know. I don't even know if this is something I can afford. I'm hearing a lot about inflation. There's worries about what's happening overseas. I don't know, Matt. I mean, this sounds pretty expensive.
Well, I certainly don't know what you can afford. But what this costs is $5 a month.
Just $5.
That's like you can't get like a futuristic tuning fork for that price. I mean, that's
I knew you were going to say that, John. I knew it.
Oh my gosh.
No, you can't because they don't exist.
Sounds like a deal.
But yes, I mean $5. Come on, folks. And all you got to do is do that $5. Just go to patreon.com, go to Monster Party, click join, follow the instructions, and man, it's like you're on Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
And what's funny is if you haven't joined, if you join now, it's like when you go to it, there's so much there for you to view or listen to. It's like, oh my gosh, you just opened up a giant treasure chest.
Sure. And there's, of course, there's a lot of other material that we still have there that we've posted in the past. So you really get a bonanza of stuff.
And let's remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV, Twitter and Instagram at Monster Party HQ. And please take a moment and wherever you're listening to us on, please take a moment and write a review. We would love to hear from you and we will read it on the air.
And not only will it be read on the air, but on the back of your review, you will find a map to Witch Mountain.
Ooh.
Yes. See you there. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Strothe.
And I'm James GONIS.
keep America strong.
And watch anything with Ike Eisenmann.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Oh,
right.
yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Shooting.
You know, I'm a little thirsty.
Oh, me
Yeah,
too.
me too. Yeah, I'm parched.
Water,
Water.
water,
Water.
water. And that's how it's done.
I'm only here to talk about one thing, okay?
Really? And what is
Which
that? Maybe we should
Falls?
warn Ike.
Escape from Witch Mountain, man. I could talk about that for hours.
Wow, great. Fantastic. Let's let the other people in.
Should we?
I know.
Oh my gosh. Oh, hey.
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 So here we have, oh my God, look, we have everybody.
Hey
Oh,
there.
and there's Ike.
There's Ike. Hey.
Now we had your camera
Wait a
for a
minute.
second,
There you
and now
go.
we lost it.
There we go.
Oh
Hey.
my goodness.
Hey.
Oh, look.
Hey.
He's got
Hey
little green
there.
sprout.
Oh
You've
my
got
God.
the sprout. Oh my God.
Of course.
Yeah.
Ike, you are my hero, man, that you have Sprout in the back.
Sprout? Well, he was Sprout.
I love Sprout.
I know. I did the voice of the little green sprout for about 2.5 years. And
Yes.
so a friend of mine bought this, found it on eBay, of course, or somewhere. I don't even know where he found it, but I thought I didn't even know this thing existed.
Yeah.
And there it is.
That's
I'm
awesome.
taking my view here. Oh, that's better.
I always
Yeah,
had
I
a
had it on
weird
speaker.
relationship with the Jolly Green Giant. I wasn't sure if I should be afraid of him
Yeah,
or to follow his orders and eat vegetables.
But see, Sprout was friendly, and Sprout actually had more dialogue. I
Sure,
mean,
yeah, he was
what
the
does
conduit.
what does a giant do? Big,
It was
what?
like,
What?
Hey,
so
listen,
you're
he's
big.
not going to destroy your village.
No,
going to
he's-
help
yeah.
it.
He's big. He's superior. He could kill all of you.
But he doesn't.
Eat your no, he doesn't
True.
because
But
he
no,
knows
but
that
I
was
have one more
definitely
question
there.
about the. So were Sprout and the Giant, were they made of vegetables?
Well, see, that's
Are
what
they
I always
mutants?
wondered. I mean,
Yeah.
I had, leaves for hair. So I'm sure I was some kind of stocky, above ground. I'm sure I had roots that spread out from my feet at some point.
Yeah,
But
you're like
That's
Groot.
that's what I want to see. That's the
Look.
movie I want to see.
yeah, exactly.
look, he was a hybrid. He was a hybrid. But look, let's I
getting ahead of
appreciate Ike
ourselves.
and your
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Yes.
Hey.
We haven't started the
happy to
show
be here.
yet. Thank you
Okay.
so much. We are
Thank
absolutely
you.
thrilled
Yes,
and
we're
honored
very
to have
excited
you.
to have
And
you.
I, as you can
Sweet.
see by all the names here, I'm Matt. We got Sean
I'm
there,
Sean.
I'm Larry.
James,
James.
and we're delighted to have
got it.
Yes.
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 Oh,
very much.
I'm super happy to be here. So thanks for the invitation. David
course.
spoke
Oh
very
my
highly
God,
of you guys.
yeah.
And so I think this will be fun.
I think
Yes,
so too. I
absolutely.
promise this at least it won't suck. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
that
no.
I can guarantee. But I see you've got cases behind you very similar to mine here.
Oh, yeah,
In
we
fact,
all-
I
we're all
think I
big
might have the
collectors.
exact same case.
Yeah, I think so. IKEA, of course.
IKEA. You know what? Hey, they do
I mean,
good
what else
work.
would it be?
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, I love their
Right.
stuff. I love it. Yeah.
And also, I just want to let you know too that normally what we do is for this segment, we kind of like record some, off the cuff banter, and we use it as a little extra at the end. Just want to let you know and make sure that that's okay. So far, all we've discussed is the Green Giant and is he a vegetable or not. So I think we're in
we'll
good
get to
territory.
the Green Giant. We'll
Nothing
get to him.
salacious,
No.
but as long as you're okay with that, that would be beautiful.
Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
And,
Ike, what we're gonna do is to start the show. Matt's going to start with his little creepy voice. We introduce the show, and we introduce ourselves. Say what the topic is. Introduce our guest, and go to town. But the
Okay.
topic is very special.
It's you.
Essentially you.
Which is well, awesome. That's great.
Because I mean, from all our research, I think we can all agree that you pretty much are IMDb. You're like
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of you. Actually, I because I do a podcast as well with a friend of mine, and the very last show we recorded was a childhood friend of mine, and also he's a friend of mine for most of my life. We worked together quite a bit, but Moosey Dreyer is his name, and he did a lot of films and a lot of work. And even though I knew him most of my life, I had never actually really looked him up on IMDb, and he's got me pretty well beat. So he's the reigning champion as far as that goes.
Well,
you're not done yet.
Yeah, and I would say if you're looking for an action or a cop show from the 70s, most likely you're in it at some point.
Yeah.
Hey, and my favorite Western of the time, which was Gunsmoke. Yeah.
Excuse me, Ike, what's the name of that podcast, by the way? I'm sorry, this is something I didn't know. Yeah,
Pop Culture Retro.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, we can definitely plug that at the end of the show too.
Oh,
So
at the end,
that'd be awesome.
At the end, at the end of
guys,
what we tip. Yeah, it's like we basically we're going to talk.
Get a kick out of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh
yeah.
I'm sure it's right up our alley because again, look behind me.
Yes, and
we all have rooms like this.
Yes.
What we'll do is we'll go through the show, and we get to the end. We're going to thank you, and we're going to say, "Hey, Ike, is there anything that you're working on?" And then we could talk about the podcast a bit and get listeners to go and check that out. So that's great. Awesome.
Cool.
All right,
let's do it.
Well, let's get to it then.
Oh, and one thing. So Ike, this is not live. If for some reason if we're going through and you go say something like that Ray Milland was a real dick. Oh, wait, I don't want to say that. And then we'll stop and we'll go back and you could go, oh, Ray Milland was wonderful. I'm just saying that Matt can fix it. So if there's anything we come up to and so it's not live, understand, okay?
Yes. This is not 60 minutes. So like
far from it.
Right. Far from it. And if even at the end, after the show, if you think of something, it's like, yeah, you know what? I think I'd rather not have that in there. Just let me know. It's out. And our job is to make everybody happy.
Yes.
Awesome.
We're fans. We're thrilled to have you. All the stuff that you've done. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, we will chat about it all as much as you want. So there you go.
Great.
So here we go.
We just lost.
I think we lost.
Okay.
Wow.
You know what, Sean? It's the Bermuda Triangle.
It is.
I know, right?
Just give him a second. Hopefully he'll come back on.
No, it's the Zoom Muta Triangle.
Yeah.
Bermuda Triangle.
It's the curse of
that was a little bit of a lift, but I'll take it.
It's Wow, this is great though.
Sean, I just want to ask him to expand on his relationship with Roddy McDowall.
Yeah, of course. And then I want to do Devil Dog next.
Devil Dog, yes.
Next.
And then you can get into Star Trek. Okay.
Gets better with every watch.
Well, Terror Out of the Sky? No?
Terror Out of the Sky?
Yeah, that one too. Devil Dogs and Terror Out of the Sky.
Of course.
You're right. Those two TV, both made in 78.
Surprisingly good.
Yeah.
It was a busy year. 78 was a busy year for him.
It's a busy year.
Really, really quickly, is that a Mickey Mouse train that I see behind you? Is that an original one? Is it the Mickey and Minnie? I'm trying to see.
No, it's not an original. It's a newer reproduction, but I loved it because it just looks so cool. Yes. I do have some very, very old stuff here.
What is
that
your
I've collected.
Vintage? Yeah.
I'm a big vintage. Most prized possession. I'll share my most prized thing with you.
Yes, right. I want to see the most prized possession. I'm dying to see this. I wonder if I have it.
This.
Is that Bradley? Is that a Bradley Mickey watch?
I don't know because I can't see anymore. But no, the reason why
he's holding up a Mickey watch, ladies and gentlemen.
Vintage Mickey Mouse watch.
Vintage Mickey Mouse watch.
That is precious to me because it was given to me by Roddy McDowall.
No, man.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this will be my exit story, and I'll make it quick.
All right.
Roddy knew that I collected Mickey Mouse because I went to Disneyland all the time and I would buy figurines, which is a lot of the stuff I have behind me. My wife insisted I get it all up, and I'm so happy I did it because it gives me so much joy. But he knew I collected Mickey Mouse, and one day he just walked past me. I was sitting reading my script first thing in the morning, and he drops this wad of Kleenex in my lap, and it hit my script with a thump. And I thought, what the heck is this? It's like he gave me his trash. And he just walks off. And so I open it up and I see it. And I thought, okay, I just was like, oh my God, this is like a vintage Mickey Mouse watch. You know, I was like babbling, and he came back and he sat down and he said, I don't know why I have it. I don't know if it even works, but I really think it belongs to you. And I just said, wow, oh my God, thank you so much. And, you know, to this day, I've never once tried to wind it to see if it worked because I didn't want to know that it didn't.
Nice. That's nice. That's amazing.
That's a keeper, Ike. That's a keeper.
That's great.
All right.
I'm going to talk to myself.
Oh, no.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. If you're just tuning in, the guys all have to use the restroom. Why? Why do you ask? Because we're all in our 50s and we can't hold it as much as we used to. So as for me, you know, I just pee in a cup, you know. Anyway, this has been fun. I was curious to see his Mickey Mouse collection. And so maybe I'll say that for another time. You know, I've got a few original Mickey Mouse things too, and I was curious to see what he had in his collection. I too have a vintage Mickey Mouse watch. It wasn't given to me by Roddy McDowell, but it is vintage. It is vintage, and mine does still work. I wind it every once in a while and have it go around. The interesting thing is Mickey's hands are red. His little gloves are red, and they really should be white. But the reason why is because if they were white, the white gloves kind of blend into the white background of the watch. So that's why they make Mickey's hands red to match his pants. So there you have it.
All right. I just came back, and so I didn't hear the full explanation, but I look forward to hearing it. It's all, yeah. When I choose to edit on and have it go onto the editing room floor, I want to know what it is I make. You're going to cut this. I'm not.
Yes, you do. You do. I do these monologues, and you go, "Oh, what the fuck is it?" Oh, I don't.
The only time I don't use them is either there's some sort of technical problem,
right,
or they're out of context in some way.
Yes,
or they're dull.
Judge, jury, and executioner.
And you know something?
But most of the time, I like them.
I was going to say most of the time they're dull. So I was going to say, Matt, sir, if you find something that I'm saying to be completely dull, I encourage you. No, you're not.
Most of the time, no. If you listen to those extras, and I know you do. I include
more than once.
I include most of what we do that's extra.
All right.
I love that movie as a kid.
I'm with you, Larry. I watched it again and again.
Do you know the lines?
It's funny because watching them both again recently, like, wow, these hold up way.
They really do
better than I thought. Like it's like, especially back then, seeing it must have been like, these are sophisticated little flicks.
I remember just when I was a kid in the theater when Tia had her case.
Yes.
I remember just the case was like,
case.
What is that? And then when it opened up, I'm like, wow,
where's a replica of that? Like a little
Sean.
A girl's, it can make it feel like a girl's purse or something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
They should make a purse out of that.
Yeah.
Where's out in the Disney store?
I don't know if there was much merchandising for those movies.
No.
I think it was there probably, I'm guessing there was like some storybooks or
probably that. Probably a soundtrack.
One of those records.
Not even, I don't even know if
not even the Winnebago. Hey, here's the Winnebago.
Or the flying saucer.
That would have been easy.
Yeah.
Little Eddie Albert in it. Little Eddie Albert action figure.
Yeah.
Oh man, but I to him in the recent Witch Mountain.
Yeah.
Ike wasn't in it, right?
Yeah, he had a cameo.
And so it was a cameo, and so did Kim Richards. I didn't see it, but Kim Richards plays like a waitress, and he's like the sheriff, like a local sheriff.
Yeah.
I think they're just cameos.
I had the biggest crush on her. As
course.
a kid, and I always thought she was reasonable, and she had that power. But I wouldn't ask her to, if she was my girlfriend, I wouldn't ask her to do the evil things. I would ask Tony. Because it's like, hey, two guys.
Well, he's already dabbled in it.
You know what's funny too is like I forgot to mention this too on the podcast, but Brian De Palma's film The Fury.
The Fury, yes.
Is
Yeah.
like a remake of Escape to Witch Mountain.
Very good.
It's the same thing. Andrew Stevens and Amy Irving,
Yes.
they both have powers of being controlled by John Cassavetes. And it's amazing. It's like, and that was in 78. That was when, or 70, no, yeah, it's the same year as Return.
The same year as Return,
It's weird, but I never realized how much.
Too. I didn't get to.
Sean, can you imagine?
Gory, sophisticated, like a gory kind of adult version of Escape to Witch Mountain.
Well, I was going to say, can you imagine if Escape from Witch Mountain, if they went really, really dark?
It can make people explode and stuff.
Heads exploding, people getting crashed and getting all bloody in a car. And
but that's really interesting. Yeah.
As much as I love the original Escape from Witch Mountain, had it been that version, I might have loved it even more.
Yeah.